You are now listening to Sanity at the Movies. It's the Western edition. We're doing this in honor of the fact that
is that Bonanza?
I don't know what that is. It's a Western theme of some type. Is it Bonanza?
I think so.
I don't know. Depends on the case. It's very important that we figure this out.
That was a show I never watched.
It's definitely a 50s or 60s TV Western theme for sure. Yes.
It's Bonanza.
Here comes Bonanza. He's going to save the day. Or is Bonanza a dude?
No. Bonanza's not a dude. Bonanza's like just the name of this thing. I don't know.
Just is it a wagon train?
I don't know what Bonanza is. Oh man, this.
Unfortunately, no one can be told what Bonanza
this TV
is.
theme is amazing.
No, it's great.
Wow.
It survived.
Yeah, it survived.
It lives in Nathan's head.
It lives in, yeah, no, I mean.
He associates a tacky Western TV sitcom from the 50s and 60s with great Western films.
Yeah, it's a movie that Orson Welles famously watched about 40 times when he was making Citizen Kane so he could get it in his bones because he thought it was just about the best movie ever made. And
so Bonanza is a term used by miners in regard to a large vein or deposit of silver ore.
So it's about people, there was gold
miners,
in them hills, and they're out to get some. You guys ever watched an old TV Western?
Oh, yeah.
I feel like I've seen some Rawhide with very young, what's his face, Clint Eastwood. I've seen some Wagon Train, which is actually pretty great. I've probably seen a little Have Gun Will Travel, a little Gunsmoke. I don't know. Ben, you big TV Western fan?
No, not at all.
Not at all.
Nope, never had any interest.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
You're just a East Coast, or no, you're not
East
really
Coast. I'm a Southerner.
Yeah, I don't care what they do in
Yep.
the Western.
Right.
It was just too much like your life. You're like, I don't just want to see someone get on a horse and ride to see the school marm. I do that every day.
I know. That's what it was like. Yeah. No, I don't know, man. I just wasn't a Western kind of a guy.
Just wasn't a Western kind of a guy.
No. I like them more now than I did when I was a kid.
I don't know. I don't know whether I would consider myself to be a Western kind of guy. Jake, are you a Western kind of a guy?
I don't think so.
I guess
Not anything that I'm really. The only reason, I mean, all my familiarity with Westerns is my grandpa and my dad.
Yes.
Right. So you go over to my grandparents' house on my dad's side, and there's going to be a TV on playing some, AMC Classics Western TV show or Western movie or John Wayne something or other, too loud to have a conversation.
Yeah. I definitely associate these kinds of things with that as well.
Yeah, and then there's my dad's sort of John Wayne nostalgia for his own dad, and the degree to which I have that, it's my nostalgia for my dad and my grandpa. But I don't know. I'm not the kind of person that's like, what am I going to watch tonight? What would be really good comfort food is a Western. Nope, that's not a thing for me at all. I can make a decision to put on a movie like The Cowboys or something like that to be like, you know what? The kids should have a Western as part of their vocabulary. They should know that this is a thing, and I should give them some kind of, I should pass on a little bit of John Wayne to them for cultural reasons and family reasons,
right? Probably.
But it's like an intellectual decision. It's not a preference.
I think the $1 million question for whether you like a genre is, do you like the bad entries, or do you only want like do you just love living in the Old West so much that it just doesn't matter if John Wayne's on the cover, get the DVD from the library, turn the darn AMC on and watch it.
No way.
Some people are like that with
chance.
sci-fi or with detective or whatever, they just want to live in that world. But yeah, I'm the same way as you guys. I only want to watch the ones that have been sort of canonized as the classics. I mean, I think I've seen most of the
I've seen a ton
point.
of John Wayne movies and my fair share of just general classics, whether it's High Noon or Once Upon a Time in the West, any number of spaghetti westerns. But even like that, I'm in the mood for, high film. Spaghetti western is not the one that I'm not going for Leone.
Right.
Like, I just don't.
Just not your thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I can appreciate it.
I mean,
I
Leone
can admire it even.
he's so awesome that I think I would turn him on for comfort food. I mean, it is just fun to watch sweaty close-ups of guys about to shoot each other for 9 minutes.
It's fun for you to watch sweaty close-ups of guys.
About to shoot each other for 9 minutes.
Okay.
To be fair. To be fair. I don't know. I mean, I guess I have enough loyalty to my grandpa's generation and to the grandpas and dads of the world that I sort of resent modern Westerns and revisionist Westerns. The whole
too.
sort of like, the West was actually full of venereal disease.
Oh, I hate that. I hate that
It's
stuff.
like, okay, whatever.
Yeah.
Everyone had bad teeth.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I do appreciate when I watch things like this, the wholesomeness of white hats and black hats and heroes and villains, and in the places where there's actually more gray they throw into these movies than anyone ever wants to give them credit for.
Well, yeah, that's the thing I kind of think is I've never seen a Western where the good guys all wear white hats and the bad guys all wear black. Everybody always says that.
No, that's just
like old
stereotype.
John Wayne movies. Well, any John Wayne movie that's still really remembered that we watch is actually pretty complex. This movie's
He's great.
I mean, this is the first big John Wayne movie, and it's complex. It's really John Wayne's the placeholder for Westerns, and White Hat, Black Hat predates John Wayne. It's
like Roy Rogers.
It's Roy
and
Rogers.
It's like
right?
the old corny singing cowboy genre
type stuff, but then that just kind of gets mapped onto John Wayne, and there's this like dopey idea or legend that people have that John Wayne never dies in any of the movies he plays in. He never goes down. He goes down multiple times.
No, he dies plenty. He plays complex characters. He plays pretty bad or morally compromised characters. I don't think he ever quite played an outright villain, except for
Genghis Khan.
Except for Genghis Khan. That's exactly where I was going. Which, if you want to have a laugh, folks, just find some footage of John Wayne's Genghis Khan movie, one of the great Hollywood follies.
I mean, yeah, he'll play a very tragic, morally ambiguous character, whether that's the assassin that he plays in his last film, The Shootist.
Yeah, or Ethan Edwards, of
or
course.
Ethan Edwards is the morally complex, tragic hero figure.
But even there, it's always a little bit sentimentalized. It's never quite.
Well, it's
Ethan
sentimentalized in the sense that, well, you may not like it, but you needed these men and they gave you everything you love. So show some respect before you throw them under the bus.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that is The Searchers, I think.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly. I mean, we are meant to. Well, we should just do The Searchers. We actually did The Searchers a long time ago.
It's been a while. We need to do it.
I'm not even going to tell people where to find it. You won't find it in this feed. You can find it if you know us, but and it's not a bad episode, but I'd like to read
this iteration of Sanity at the Movies needs to deal with The Searchers.
The Searchers is a very, very important movie, especially because guys like Spielberg and like that whole generation, they loved John Ford, and they took so much from John Ford, and specifically from The Searchers.
If Stagecoach was like, I need to get it in my bones for Orson Welles, The Searchers is that for a lot of the brat guys. Right?
Yeah. I mean, I think John Ford and David Lean are probably Spielberg's. I don't know that he would say this, but just looking at the way that he does things, it's
the cinematography of Spielberg takes so much from the. Like you could go back. I think that every time I've watched The Searchers, I just think, well, what I think, because is, wow, this evokes Spielberg. This reminds me of Spielberg.
Well, for one thing, Spielberg loves doors, and The Searchers has the most famous door scene in all of cinema, and so that's a simple reason. But also just the clean compositions, the steady tracking shots, not a lot of handheld, just very what would you say? Just very formal, clean, sort of. We're not trying to show off. We're trying to tell the best story possible. I mean, the perfect example from this movie, which I'll introduce the show and who we are in a second, folks. But the perfect example from this movie is the opening where it's like 3 shots and they're like, Geronimo, he's a really bad guy. And then the guy runs up and he's like, sir, there's been a thing. It's Geronimo. it's like so clean.
Bum, bum, bum.
So simple.
Right.
3 shots. We've established the threat. It's like we're not going to waste any time on anything superfluous. We just want to boil this down to
who are we concerned about and scared of in this movie?
Right.
His name is Geronimo.
The only way to make it simpler would be to have a title, a Star Warsian title crawl. Geronimo. There are heroes on both sides. all that kind of stuff. Well, folks, the show is Sanity at the Movies. I am Nathan, your humble and obedient host. We've got Rootin' Tootin' Ben Sulzer over there.
That's what I do.
The gun slinging, saloon
Roots Sandy Toots.
winging
Sandy Toots.
guy.
Yeah, the gunslinging guy.
The preacher who's a teacher of justice.
That's right.
And the American way.
In the American way.
And Ben, why don't you introduce the mysterious stranger?
Well, he's our very own Western hero, folks. Pastor Jacob Menzel.
Pastor Jacob Menzel.
On the wild frontier of Evansville here.
Mm-hmm.
We rely on him to occupy that liminal space between the civilized and the uncivilized.
Right.
How you doing, Jake?
I'm fine. How are you?
I'm good.
Taming the wilderness here in Evansville, Indiana. Oh man, that greedy land baron that put down a fence and hired goons to. Oh man, unless it's one of the movies where the greedy land baron's the good guy and all the marauding idiots that don't want any law and order. The morality can flip very easily in these things. What is your favorite Western movie, Ben?
Man, I don't even know, Nathan. I haven't thought about that question.
Well, you have to think about it
your
now.
favorite Western and your favorite John Wayne, and we need an answer for both.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
Well, Stagecoach is my favorite John Wayne.
Yes.
But I'm underwatched. I haven't seen many John Wayne movies for whatever reason, and I feel like I haven't seen many Westerns though. Back in the day, Once Upon a Time in the West was awesome. I don't know that I like it even now, but
yeah, I mean,
I'm not sure what to say.
There's a weird rapey subplot in that, which is what takes away a lot of what's great about it, but it's pretty awesome in some parts at least.
Yeah. Maybe apart from that, just that movie. I mean, it's been 10 years, but cinematically, it was one of the coolest things I'd ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
Until you saw Tombstone.
Until I saw Tombstone.
Now, Jake, is that your favorite Western?
No. No, but it is the movie where I learned that Val Kilmer is an actual actor.
Val Kilmer's great in that movie. Val Kilmer rules.
Yeah.
I mean, let me say
awesome.
something controversial. Val Kilmer's really good in Tombstone. Huckleberry.
You don't say. I mean, I said the obvious thing, so I guess you get to say it too.
No. I mean, I love Tombstone.
I think Back to the Future Part 3 is probably your favorite Western.
Oh,
Obviously.
dude, you know what? You got something there.
An American Tail 5 Goes West.
As a kid, Back to the Future 3, definitely.
Morons, trigger the mousetrap. John Cleese says one of the lines that lives in my head and occurs to me at least every couple of weeks.
Forgot that was John Cleese.
Yeah,
he's the man.
Wiley Brown.
Caterwall.
Jimmy Stewart's greatest
Jimmy
role.
Stewart versus John Cleese, buddy.
A movie that
Awesome.
I never really clocked it at the time, but I'm sure if I watched it now, it would, in all its cynicism, ring an actual tear from me as the sun goes down on Jimmy Stewart in one of his last roles, playing a burping dog.
And The Quick and the Dead. That's probably your favorite.
Dude, how could I forget it?
Oh my goodness.
Sharon Stone's greatest role.
It might be.
You got Leo DiCaprio. You've got
Gene Hackman, right?
Gene Hackman. You got Russell Crowe.
That movie is stacked. I mean, that movie
stacked.
has an awesome
It's
cast.
got that shot, where you can see through the head of the
I think that's how. No,
I've never seen it. That's a Sam Raimi, isn't it?
it's a hilariously Sam Raimi.
It is very
it's like,
Sam Raimi.
why do something in 2 shots when you could do it in 14? And when you can see the bullet and have a guy do a backflip after he gets shot and
That
stuff.
sounds awesome.
It's you swap out Sharon Stone with somebody who's a man and has charisma, and that movie would be pretty great. But Sharon Stone, A, she's a lady. B, she's so boring and charisma free, and I really don't understand what the big deal with Sharon Stone. Well, I guess I do understand what the big deal with Sharon Stone was, but it wasn't her acting. Let's put it that way.
Unforgiven?
Unforgiven's good.
Yeah, it's good. I haven't seen it for
Probably Brokeback Mountain is what I
Forever.
was waiting for you to say.
yeah. Thanks a lot, Jake.
Wow, Jake coming in hot with
Wow.
the accusations of a certain kind of sin for both his co-hosts.
Young Guns.
Amazing. Young Guns.
Young Guns 2.
Never seen it.
Oh man.
Wow.
Forgiven's great. Dessert's got nothing to do with it, but it's probably the best of the revisionist Western kind of, the West was really violent and terrible kind of movies. It's pretty good.
Yeah.
But
It's good stuff. Gene Hackman is awesome.
Gene Hackman is awesome. Did you actually pick one? You got to pick one. A Western.
botheration. I guess I'm going to default to Once Upon a Time in the West.
All right.
That's fine.
And
I give it to you.
You give it to me. Thanks.
I mean, Once Upon a Time in the West is...
It's probably from a film standpoint, the greatest in the genre, right? Like, I mean, you could argue The Searchers.
I mean, I would say there are scenes that are better than any other Western scenes. Whether it all adds up to much of anything is an open question.
I'm not sure that
it's been a long time since I've seen it.
I just enjoyed it.
But it's fun. And what a awesome Ennio Morricone score, and Henry Fonda as the psychopathic
what an amazing
villain
choice.
is great.
He's the best.
It is. It's his best role.
Well,
I don't care what anybody says about 12 Angry Men or anything else. Grapes of Wrath, I don't care what.
I saw an interview with Fonda where he said they hired him for it. He put in brown contacts, grew a mustache, showed up on set, and Leone comes running up. No.
No, we need the blue eyes.
I paid for it, basically, and Fonda realized, he says in the interview, he'd bought my blue eyes. That's what he was paying for, was the baby blues. Because if you remember his opening scene, a little family with kids gets massacred.
I've forgotten all this.
And, which is amazing. And then it's amazing because the music, that Morricone score goes big, and then who should walk out with his baby blues but Henry Fonda. And he doesn't play it any differently than...
an amazing setup to the whole movie.
Yeah, it's that scene is the best Western, maybe. But Jake, what's your favorite Western and your favorite John Wayne?
I keep bouncing in my head between The Searchers or The Cowboys.
Mm-hmm.
The Cowboys is it's not a great film by any stretch, but it's got some heart, it's got some fun, and it's got a John Williams score.
Mm-hmm. One of his earliest, if I'm not mistaken.
John Wayne's?
John
Williams. I'm
yes.
sorry. Yeah, and it's a fantastic John Williams homage to Aaron Copland kind of score, like encapsulate every Western in a Western score, kind of encapsulate the positive Americana of a Western in a Western score, kind of a thing. But when it comes down to and the reason those two are what's in my head is because those are just the two that if I want to watch a Western, those are the stand-ins in my mind. And maybe some of that's my dad and John Wayne and growing up with the Cowboys. But so I'm going to have to say probably The Searchers, because it also pulls in my nostalgia for Spielberg and everything else.
Sure. Yeah.
So that's going to be my favorite Western. But John Wayne, there's only one, outside of The Searchers, there's one truly great John Wayne movie, and it's The Quiet Man.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my answer for that.
Yeah, The Quiet Man is definitely my favorite John Wayne movie, and I hope that we'll...
Still have never seen it.
I hope to watch it next year for our February pick, because I think we've been looking for those...
Homeric.
Those old... yes, it's impetuous, it's Homeric. We've been looking for those movies that have some...
Universal appeal.
Some universal appeal, yes. Some old-fashioned values that appeal to everybody on some primal level, and The Quiet Man's right up there. I mean, it's got to join the company of Philadelphia Story, which we did 2 years ago, and then we did It Happened One Night, which is some high company, I'd say. But yeah, Quiet Man's definitely my favorite John Wayne movie. My favorite Western? That's a really good question. There's definitely a time in my life where I would have said The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. I mean, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly is so much not about anything besides style.
Yeah,
that I'm not sure how it would hit me now. It's been a few years since I've seen it, but it's a lot of fun. The style is sure great, and the good and the bad and the ugly are all played to perfection. And Eli Wallach as Tuco is something. He's a character, that Tuco. So,
so I just remembered I really enjoyed the Coen Brothers' True Grit.
Yeah, I'd wondered if that would come up for either of you.
I thought about it. I love that movie.
Or if you try to squeeze No Country for Old Men in there.
No.
But I've never seen that one.
And I would come closer to giving it to No Country for Old Men than I would to True Grit. I have mixed feelings about the fact that the Coen brothers went out of their way to adapt the ending of that novel, which is a very bleak ending. It's a very beautiful, bleak ending. Time just gets away from us, I guess, says the armless single woman as she walks away from Rooster Cogburn's grave, if you'll recall.
Mm-hmm.
It's such a fun adventure movie.
Mhm.
And then the Coen brothers are like, well, here's the twist. Life sucks. Which is straight from the Charlie Portis novel. I understand. I've never read it. It does add something to the movie that the John Wayne movie doesn't have, but it also
Takes away something.
It is ultimately kind of a downbeat movie for as much fun as
Mhm.
2/3 of it are. So,
Yeah, definitely.
but it is such a,
That final shootout.
it is great. Yeah.
It's pretty incredible.
Fill your hands, you son of a gun. He doesn't say son of a gun, but he does say fill your hands, which is a cool way to tell someone to draw their guns.
Yeah.
It was pretty awesome.
Yep, one of the great mumblecore performances by Jeff Bridges. It's great. It's great. The other thing I don't like about that movie is there's a pretty snarky joke about where the three men are being hung, and they let the one guy make the speech and the second guy make the speech, and then the Indian or black man or whoever he is goes to make a speech, and they just put the hood over. That guy actually in the novel and in the John Wayne movie has a beautiful speech, and the Coen brothers are
Going
just
all
like,
post-colonial on
yeah,
us.
ha ha ha. Nobody cares to listen to this guy's speech.
Yeah, that I remember that. It had some meanness like that.
But Haley Steinfeld as Maddie Ross is amazing in that movie.
She's just good.
She's
just good.
She's really good. She's maybe the main reason to watch that movie.
She's good at everything she does.
Well, the other thing that's disappointing about that movie is that we have to lose her in the last 10 minutes. She gets replaced by an older actress, and it's like, I don't like old age makeup, but I almost would have, we have such a relationship with her by that point that you almost want to finish the movie with her somehow.
Yeah, but they wanted to do what the novel did.
Yeah.
And it does. It does. It's like, takes all the wind out of your sails.
Yeah, I mean, it's the exact same trick that No Country for Old Men plays, but...
I mean, let's face it, the Coen brothers, that's what they like to do, is take all the wind out of your sails.
Right.
And be mean, and remind you that life sucks, and remind you that people are horrible, and you're going to die, and you're probably lying to yourself if you have any good qualities anyway.
Right.
What's the Western that you haven't seen that might be on your list if you'd seen it, but you just have never gotten around to it? Yeah, I've got this all up, and I've been, all of my pulls are cheats because I've got all these Google lists popped up in front of me, and I didn't even throw the comedies out there. But I just saw one that was like, oh yeah, I really wanted to see that or thought about seeing that, and I wonder if that would be on my list.
For the longest time, it was The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance. I finally caught up with that one, and it is great.
Yeah,
but it doesn't count for what you're saying because I finally caught up with it.
Did you like it?
No Country for Old Men is one I haven't seen, and I've not read the book. So that might be one, I guess, but probably not because...
it is so violent.
Yeah. Hell or High Water was the one that caught my eye.
Hell or High Water, I've always wanted to see. I'm afraid it might just be...
same kind of...
liberal propaganda, just like... I'm just afraid it might be preachy one way or another.
It's high up on a lot of lists. But so is Django Unchained and The Hateful Eight.
Yeah, that's dumb.
So, and so is The Revenant for that matter.
I hate The Revenant. I just think The Revenant that's one of Nathan's famous hot takes is The Revenant stinks. It takes a amazing real life story and reduces it to a parable about colonialism, and I hate it, and I hate DiCaprio in that movie, and it's just The Revenant. I sat there. It's just one of those things where Nathan hates something that everybody loves. I know it's happened once or twice, but I do not recommend The Revenant to anyone unless you like being pandered to. Great Westerns. I'm trying to find a list here.
Everybody's seen High Noon.
I don't love High Noon. I don't love the moral of High Noon.
Right.
I've always wanted to see Destry Rides Again, which is a famous Jimmy Stewart comedy Western that's supposed to be fantastic. Actually came out the same year as Stagecoach, and it's kind of the other one that ushered Westerns into something more psychologically complex, but I've never seen that one, at least not all the way through.
The Assassination of Jesse James by the coward Robert Ford is always high on lists. I've never seen that one.
Oh, man. That movie's awesome.
Is that your favorite Western?
I just didn't even think of it as a Western, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good revisionist Western. I like that movie.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite movies, period. But I just don't think of it as a Western.
So that tops your list?
Actually, yeah.
Takes out.
If that counts as a Western, then sure, I'll take it.
It doesn't really fulfill, it's more of an anti-Western than anything else.
Yeah, it really is.
I mean,
I don't even know that I want to count it as a Western, but I think it is a great movie. It's not it doesn't actually have the Coen brothers trick.
Mm-hmm.
It has actually Coen brothers are reductionistic, shall we say, in their view of people.
Mm-hmm.
But this movie is the least maybe of any movie I could think of. It's just like these are people
Mm-hmm.
in all the ways that they suck and all the ways that they don't.
Yeah, exactly.
Some of the movies, Last of the Mohicans, Dances with Wolves. Oh my goodness.
You know what? I love both of them. Cannot tell a lie. I think those movies are both terrific fun. And I don't think you should take either one all that seriously. But
Last of the Mohicans is fun. It's a
Yeah.
genuinely good adventure melodrama.
I think you have to approach it on that level. If you're looking for high art, then you'll be disappointed. But if you're like, hey, it's a movie where the bad guys always
I'd rather
miss
watch,
and the good guys always hit everything that they shoot at, then it's a great movie.
I'd rather watch City Slickers or City Slickers Part 2, The Legend of Curly's
The Legend
Gold.
of Curly's Gold. I forgot about the thing we all would have said.
This
our
list
favorite
puts Treasure of the Sierra Madre on it, and I've not seen that, but I didn't think of that. I didn't think that was a Western.
I don't know that I count that as a Western.
I've not seen it.
Searchers High Noon, Shane, I've seen. I guess I've just seen lots of movies. That's kind of my thing on this podcast. So
Blazing Saddles.
Blazing Saddles is a humorous film. I will acknowledge.
I didn't
Three Amigos.
laugh at all when I saw it. Three Amigos, I laughed a lot, but I was, 13.
I didn't laugh at all when I saw Three Amigos.
Well, it sounds
Take
like
that.
a personal
I was
problem.
in my 30s.
Well, as
Maverick.
a 13,
Did y'all
14-year-old
ever see
boy,
that
Three
one?
Amigos is really funny. Maverick, I loved, again, as a kid.
I liked that movie a lot as a kid, too.
Yeah, I mean, I miss Mel Gibson. He was my favorite big Hollywood star. And
He
then-
was in some promotional commercial thing where it's like, oh, I guess Mel Gibson's making a comeback.
Yeah, I
Like,
mean,
he was like,
he's been forgiven, basically.
yeah.
He's not unforgiven. But he hasn't ever, started to be a movie star again, which I miss. Although I think they're in the works on Lethal Weapon 5, so wahoo.
That's terrible.
Best Westerns. That's a hotel of all time. Okay, the 35 greatest Westerns of all time. Let me see how many of these I've actually seen. Stagecoach is number 1. Oxbow Incident, never seen it.
Never
My
seen
Darling
it.
Clementine. I owned it for a long time, never watched it. Red River's pretty great, totally sells out at the end. Winchester 73, you want to see serious Jimmy Stewart pursuing the man who killed his something or other across the dirty West.
I'm
That's
going to see it.
That's a good movie.
It sounds great.
It's a good movie. High Noon, Gary Cooper sucks, whatever. Shane's pretty awesome.
I haven't ever seen Shane.
Shane, come back.
Yeah, I think Shane, we can put Shane on my list of Western I wish I had seen.
I've never seen Johnny Cruz, never seen Vera Cruz, or Johnny Guitar, I'm sorry. Searchers is number 11 on this list. Let's see. Rio Bravo's a classic. I may not like anything with John Wayne. I've actually never seen the Magnificent Seven all the way through.
I
Bravo
have
is-
seen it, and I don't remember liking it.
Yeah, I watched part of it, and it just didn't grab me for whatever reason. I don't know why. It feels like it has all the elements of...
Seven Samurai I liked. Seven Samurai is awesome. But
Yeah, I don't know. The Wild Bunch is probably the best of the Everything Was Terrible.
How about Quigley Down Under?
Quickly Down Under rules, obviously.
I saw that pretty recently. It does not exactly rule.
I thought it ruled when I was 13. I haven't seen
Yeah,
it
no,
since.
it's perfect for a 13-year-old
This list of
boy.
sci-fi westerns has
It's awesome,
some
but
weird things included,
Like what?
like Solo, like
Boo.
Book of Eli.
you mean Solo with Mario Van Peebles, I think, Jake, which is a masterpiece, let me tell you.
I definitely mean Solo, a Star Wars story,
Oh, okay.
right next to the Book of Eli,
5 people are clapping right now.
right next to the Dark Tower,
Hated Book of Eli.
Future
Really
World,
overrated movie,
Outland,
I think.
Cowboys and Aliens,
I didn't
Wild
hear
Wild
anyone like
West,
Book of Eli.
Westworld, and Back to the
Oh, maybe
Future 3.
maybe I just joined the
I
masses.
didn't see it. It looked dumb.
I remember liking it.
Wild Wild West. Want to talk about a terrible everything.
Yeah, there's really nothing good about that movie.
Arguably worse than The Slap in terms of moments in Will Smith's career. I mean, Wild Wild West is just
Well,
terrible.
it's probably worse when you put it in context with what he rejected to play it.
The Matrix. Is that The Matrix?
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was his worst decision of his career.
Anybody ever see The Outlaw Josie Wales?
I would like to see that
No,
one, actually.
I haven't.
I've heard it's great.
That is my favorite Clint Eastwood movie. It's really fun. It's pretty sweet. He's kind of a found family. Josie Wells is a drifter and a loner who's out for revenge, but somehow he keeps attracting goofy sidekicks to himself. And it's got a lot of great action. Tombstone, Quick and the Dead, The Assassination of Jesse James by the coward Robert Ford. Boy, folks, one of these days we're going to talk about
There Will Be Blood.
Stagecoach.
That's on this list.
I love that movie. I don't know that I'd really count it as a Western exactly. All right. Well, I guess we've talked about our baggage with Westerns for a while now.
Yeah, I guess so.
Anybody got any baggage with Stagecoach in particular?
Nope.
Have you guys seen Stagecoach before watching it for this podcast?
Didn't know anything about it.
Every possible John Wayne movie is such a ubiquitous part of my childhood that I know I've seen this movie, but I can't every John Wayne movie that I've not gone back to as an adult runs together in my mind, more or less. Like they're all Stagecoach.
Right.
Half of John Wayne's movies are Stagecoach reimagined, or, they're all Rio Bravo, or they're all The Sons of Katie Elder, or they're all just, they got the same kinds of plots. And
well, when I think of John Wayne from my childhood, so there's that famous quote, I have it here. Frank Capra said he was trying to do a John Wayne movie, and John Wayne's screenwriter famously said, "All you gotta have in a John Wayne picture is a hoity-toity dame with big breasts that Duke can throw over his knee and spank, and a collection of jerks he can smash in the face every 5 minutes. In between, you fill in with gags, flags, and chases. That's all you need. His fans eat it up." I feel like I grew up with that John Wayne.
Yeah.
More so than, when I watch Stagecoach, I'm a little surprised, oh, this guy's virile and cool, and
he's got some real mojo. There's a reason he's a star.
I'm more used to old John Wayne in an obvious toupee, finding excuses to slowly punch guys in bar fights, put the ladies in their place, that kind of thing, which is unfortunately, a lot of John Wayne's.
He earned that.
Yeah, and those movies are fun. I mean, those movies are fun dad movies. I don't begrudge those movies or the people that like them. I enjoy those movies, and it's fun to kind of goof on the sex politics and stuff now. But they're not great. They're not great cinema. I mean, those movies are some of John Wayne's biggest moneymakers, though. I think McClintock was the biggest moneymaker of 1963, which is just insane to think about now.
People really like The Quiet Man, but what if you took that, put it in the West, put the cowboy hat back on him, and amped everything up to 11?
Let's turn everything up to 11. Hey, you know how you thought maybe he was going to beat her? Let's just put that in the movie. Everybody wanted it. Oh, my goodness. Well, guys, let's talk about, as the poster has it, a powerful story of 9 strange people. I think that might be the worst tagline that any great movie.
Oh, wow. I want to go see that.
Whoa, guys, did you know a powerful story of 9 strange people is playing at the cinema?
I bet at the time, actually, it was just fine. That
You
marketing
think so?
at the time, yeah. All marketing was like that, right? It was just a lot more, whoa.
Yeah, it'd be like adapted from the #1 bestseller. That would be like the tagline. But
yeah,
a powerful story of 9 strange people still seems
pretty bad,
pretty lame.
I guess I haven't looked at movie posters from the time.
But probably, the idea that we're going to actually throw 9 people in a room in a stagecoach, and instead of having a lead and his girl, we're going to have 9 people playing off of each other.
Right.
That's pretty novel.
Yeah, and this is arguably the movie that created that template, whatever you want to call it. I think people call it arc movies or elevator movies, any movie where a bunch of strangers get trapped in a
12 Angry Men
scenario together and have to work their way out. So the 9 strange people isn't bad, I guess, but maybe 9 mysterious people. Like strange is an interesting word.
Choice.
9 choice people.
No.
It's just
choice.
word use at the time.
Yeah. I guess
I'm sure part of it has to be right.
Yeah.
This requires a research, a deep dive.
Well, okay, so let's talk about Stagecoach. A little context here. A lot of people consider this critically to be the first adult Western, kind of the Christopher Nolan's Batman of its time. We're going to take a genre that's a little bit, or the Tim Burton's Batman, if you want to say.
There you
go. We're going to take a genre that's a little disreputable, that's B level, and we're going to class it up, add some psychological realism, have characters that adults can invest in who have kind of adult problems, as opposed to the actual lineage of Westerns before that, which really haven't come down to us. like nobody watches Roy Rogers or Hopalong Cassidy, or like my dad, I think, watched those when he was a little kid in 1945, like when he was 5 years old. And that's when those things, I mean, has any of you guys, have you ever actually seen a Gene Autry or a Roy Rogers?
I've seen Gene Autry.
No.
Yeah, I think Gene Autry is probably the one that you would have seen if you'd seen anybody. But it's like the Western was a B movie genre, and Stagecoach was kind of the thing that said, or one of the things.
Which is, again, what makes John Ford the template for Spielberg and Lucas.
Right, exactly. Like, because those guys are in the business of taking cheapo genre
that you liked as a kid
and trying to imbue it with some.
What if we put some money in this? What if we invested some time and effort in screenwriting and dollars and effect? Like, what if we actually went on location instead of put up a
stupid facade
in a studio?
Yeah, and I think the other thing that's similar is it's not just that we're going to spend more money. It's not just that we're going to have some psychological realism. We're also going to strip things down until we find kind of the iconography of this. Like, this is our Greek myth. This is there's something primal about this for us as Americans, maybe for just us as humans. And I'm going to find what that is, which is something that Marvel does not do with their superheroes. They're very much committed to doing the opposite and saying, yeah, we're all humans that suck, but are kind of cute. Like, there's very little in the way of, like, this is our myth. Whereas, what's his face?
I mean, Joss Whedon tried it.
Yeah, Joss Whedon tried it a little bit, I think. But really, the person that's carried that torch in the last decade was, what's his face? Zack Snyder. Yeah. And you don't have to like it, but, and I largely don't outside of his Justice League cut, but I think he does treat those superheroes with respect, I guess, in a certain way.
Yeah, I think he does.
This movie was nominated for Best Picture, Best Director, Best Black and White Cinematography. I guess they had both. Best Interior Decoration, which is interesting, and Best Film Editing. It won 2 awards, one for Best Supporting Actor. Anybody want to take a guess who won? I think it's pretty obvious.
It's Uncle Billy, the doctor.
It's the doctor, yeah. Thomas Mitchell is the doctor. I mean, he's got the part in the screenplay that's written to win an Academy Award.
Right.
Him or maybe Dallas, I guess, I could see her. Best Score.
You don't think Friar Tuck deserves
Oh, I love Friar Tuck. I think he deserves all the awards.
Beans. Is that Friar Tuck? Which one is Friar Tuck?
He's
the driver.
Yeah.
The guy.
Always means.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's pretty fun.
Yeah, he's great. So yeah, that's Stagecoach's place. Ben, you did a little research for us on the Western as a literary genre before it even became a movie genre.
Dime store novels.
Well, I mean, actually, most people date it from James Fenimore Cooper and the Leatherstocking Tales. So even before you get to dime store novels and stuff, you have him writing, pre-1850s, pre-Civil War. He's from Cooperstown, New York, which was founded by his dad. So he
home
was
of the Baseball Hall of Fame.
Home of the baseball. I was just going to say that, Jake.
I bet you were.
You stole my thunder.
I've been there.
Have you?
I've been to Cooperstown. Yeah,
that's cool. I have not.
Yeah, it's cool.
I know that it was.
If you're a baseball fan,
it was
probably if you're a James Fenimore Cooper fan too, but I wouldn't know.
Yeah, I'm not really a fan. I have read Less of the Mohicans once upon a time.
I think he's a terrible writer, but
I remember being quite bored.
Yeah, he's pretty boring.
But he was a wealthy guy, really well educated, cultured, spent a lot of time in Europe in his adult years. But Cooperstown was kind of a frontier town at the time. And then his tales of the frontier were tales that weren't, they weren't the West as we think of it in the Western, but it was like people pushing west.
Right.
Still. And he wrote all these stories so the Leatherstocking Tales, if you don't know, have the hero Natty Bumppo.
Yes, called Hawkeye in the Last of the Mohicans.
Yeah, Hawkeye, which is a much cooler name. A much cooler name. So he's a scout who lives off the land. He has friends among the Indians. He's on the fringe. He's suspended between the civilized world and the wilderness. And
he's like Blade.
He's like Blade.
The Blade of his time.
Yeah. So you've got this romance of the frontier. You've got a noble savage view of the Indians. There's the evil ones, and then there's the noble ones. And if you've seen Last of the Mohicans, you know exactly how that works. And here, I'm going to quote something from encyclopedia.com. James Fenimore Cooper introduced the themes of the frontier, white and Indian conflict, and America's westward expansion, proper subjects for literary works. Perhaps even more importantly, he began to shape the romantic idea of the American West. So he didn't ever go west.
Right, but that's really worth paying attention to. We were already mythologizing this stuff as early before 1850.
Early. And what was so interesting to me is that this romanticization spread, I think from him particularly, it spread to Europe. And it caught fire in Europe before, long before Sergio Leone was making movies. Mm-hmm. You know, you have all of these different countries in Western Europe starting to make Westerns, like novels and stuff. So, for instance, in Italy, you've got Puccini and his opera La Fanciulla del West, which premiered in 1910.
Yeah.
And then you've got the fast draw becoming popular in France. It was first popular there and became part of the 1908 Olympics. There's a lot of other stuff, but the biggest one would be in Germany, where you've got the writer Karl May, he was writing like in the 1890s this series, and I mean he just wrote a ton of pulp novels about this Western immigrant to America named Old Shatterhand, because you see his fist was so powerful that he could knock someone out with a single carefully calculated punch.
Wow.
So all of that movement so infected and shaped the European notion of America that like when you and especially in Germany, so when you study German to this day, and they have like little videos and things of Germans talking about how cool America is or whatever, it's like, oh, I got ein T-shirt mit ein Texas motif, you know, and the idea that Americans wear cowboy boots, that it's Texas, that it's cowboy hats, cowboy boots, Texas vests, chaps. That's who we are.
It's amazing.
Like that, I remember all the way through college, that just being like part of the, like when Germans make videos to teach Americans how to speak German, they think that they're appealing and relating to us by showing we like Texas and cowboy hats and cowboy boots and we wear leather vests and Texas is cool. Westerns are awesome. Cowboy hats are neat.
Oh, thank you, Germany.
Yeah.
And that's just like
amazing.
Ubiquitous in all of that material that I remember, you know, from middle school through college in my study of German.
Man.
But I just have all these images that were just like hilarious to us.
Well, I didn't know any of this. I'm sure I've heard the name Old Shatterhand before, but I would have had no clue what it was. Mm-hmm. So it's Old Shatterhand and his Apache pal Winnetou. There's novels about both of them, and then of course later on there's lots of movies about both of them. But okay, so Karl May was denigrated, maybe unfairly, in an article titled "The Cowboy Mentor of the Fuhrer." So here's a quote from that. The Third Reich is Karl May's ultimate triumph. The ghastly realization of his dreams. It is according to ethical and aesthetic standards indistinguishable from his that the Austrian house painter, nourished in his youth by Old Shatterhand, is now attempting to rebuild the world. His murderous minions are perverted romanticists, infantile, criminal, irresponsible. They are hopelessly estranged from both reality and art, sacrificing all civilization and all common sense. Mm-hmm. So that there's the idea that this violent Western hero who sometimes has to take the law into his own hands and kind of makes his own rules at times is a model for Adolf Hitler. So that's I don't know, you could apply that critique, I guess, to Natty Bumppo if you wanted. But anyway, that's so May is still really popular. And okay, back to America. So he's the 1890s, but 1850s to 1900, you got the dime novels in America, which are like British penny dreadfuls. They're super popular, cheaply printed, quickly written, short fiction that's sensational. A lot of them based on people who were not long dead, like Billy the Kid, Buffalo Bill, Wyatt Earp, Wild Bill Hickok, Jesse James. I think Hickok was still alive during the publication of some of these. So these guys are being romanticized like instantly.
Yeah, the amount of actual knowing self mythology that some of these guys had. You know, the
Right.
Wild Bill Buffalo traveling show,
Yeah.
where Annie Oakley would do shooting tricks and stuff like that, and that was at the World's Fair in 1903. Stuff like that is it's just like it's really fascinating. Like, was there ever a metatextual, if I can still use that stupid word, West? Like, I don't think
Right.
so. I think it's
No.
always been the West in our mind, you know.
Yeah, and that's pretty interesting. I mean, so you have this stuff. Then once you get to the 1900s, you get to pulp magazines, where we get the term pulp fiction from. You've got a million of them: cowboy stories, ranch romances, Star Western, Western Story magazine, and then the first Western novels start appearing. The Virginian by Owen Wister. Never read it. There's a movie of it, right?
Yeah, I think a
Never seen
pretty
it.
well regarded one.
Never seen it. And the one that everyone's heard of but never read, Riders of the Purple Sage by Zane Grey.
Yeah, I've heard the title. I mean, I know men of our father or grandfather's generation that have whole stacks of, like, they have the complete Zane Grey, you know, just like a stack of paperbacks in their shelves.
Well, I thought I should read everyone an excerpt from the first
Absolutely.
chapter of Riders of the Purple Sage from 1912. Here we go.
Oh boy.
Chapter 1, Lassiter. A sharp clip-crop of iron-shod hoofs deadened and died away, and clouds of yellow dust drifted from under the cottonwoods out over the sage.
I can see it.
Jane Withersteen gazed down the wide purple slope with dreamy and troubled eyes. A rider had just left her, and it was his message that held her thoughtful and almost sad, awaiting the churchmen who were coming to resent and attack her right to befriend a Gentile. She wondered if the unrest and strife that had lately come to the little village of Cottonwoods was to involve her. And then she sighed, remembering that her father had founded this remotest border settlement of southern Utah and that he had left it to her. So if you are surprised to learn that this sweeping Western novel centers around Mormons and their conflict with Gentiles, okay, now you know. This Mormon lady, one of the main characters, and remember that the Mormons had a frontier of their own. They were pioneers going out to Utah in the 1840s in a weird...
Do you know that? Do you remember that Sherlock Holmes has adventures with Mormons?
No.
And yeah, there
I
are
didn't know.
whole Sherlock Holmes stories dealing with Mormons and the Wild West.
That's fascinating.
You know, it's he never leaves, he never goes, but you are like on the outs with Brigham Young, and because you wouldn't give your daughter to the right man.
Oh, I do remember
And
that one.
Man, that's really
it's the Orange
interesting.
Pips is that particular one. I think there's more than one, but that's the one that sticks out in my mind. I think it's 5 Orange Pips or something about Orange Pips.
Interesting.
Yeah, just the same way that Indian Tuggy Colts would be used to add a splash of color to the, it was the Strangler from Bombay, even if it's all happening in British drawing rooms, is like that kind of thing. Like, how do we add a little color? Well, the Mormons are weird.
The Mormons are weird.
The Mormons will hunt you down all the way in some borough of London because you refuse to give your 14-year-old daughter to be one of Brigham Young's sister wives or whatever,
There you go.
something like that.
That's fascinating.
It's
Yeah.
that kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, that's about all. I mean, but earlier than that, you have the first Western movies appearing.
Sure.
You've got The Great Train Robbery in 1903, which you'll talk about, I'm sure. But you could argue for earlier stuff. I found a random YouTube thing that I sent to Nathan. Kidnapping by Indians from 1899. It's like a 2-minute short
One of
film
those
from
Edison-
Britain, from England.
Oh, from England, yeah.
Yeah, it's from England. So, and there's a random stuff like that. So,
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a lot to say about the history of the West on film. I could say, The Great Train Robbery, which a lot of people date as one of the first narrative films from 1903, is a Western. I mean, it's like the history of the Western and the history of cinema are intertwined. It was just always a thing. It's weird that we don't just pump out Westerns now, because since the beginning of cinema, they were pumping them out. It was just a space that people liked to live in.
We've moved in the last 50 to 70 years from developing, the American mythology to deconstructing it. So, and we've already deconstructed the Western.
Right. I think that's true. I think it's also true that because we started to deconstruct the West, we just took those heroes and moved them into other genres. John McClane from Die Hard is a Western hero.
Yeah.
Tony Stark in his way is a Western hero.
Yeah, it was just
the
the
Mandalorian
anti-hero.
certainly is a Western
Yep,
hero,
yep.
you know.
Han Solo.
Everyone who's
Indiana
in between
Jones.
civilized and uncivilized,
Right.
a law unto themselves, the liminal space.
Right, yes.
Right.
Anyone with the code, the modern knight, right?
Well, Gene Roddenberry famously loved Wagon Train and said, how can we do Wagon Train in a new way? Let's just have a ship that's that's moving across the stars, colonizing and doing and encountering hostile tribes or
Yep.
friendly tribes and dealing with their cultures and stuff. I mean, Star Trek was conceived 1-to-1 as a Western. Obviously, Star Wars draws on Westerns.
And don't forget Firefly.
Don't forget Firefly.
By Joss Whedon.
Not only was that conceived from Westerns, they really wanted you to know it. Now, Ben, you signaled me off mic. You have one more piece of information you
Oh.
forgot to get in there. It's very important.
Well, I didn't know if you would talk about it in your movie context, Nathan, but there's Bela Lugosi is in a German production of The Leatherstocking Tales in 1920.
Mm-hmm.
If you didn't know,
Yeah.
now you know.
I never drink sarsaparilla. I don't know.
Yeah, it's strange. It's Dracula plus Natty Bumppo.
Yep. That's pretty incredible.
Yep.
Well, so the Westerns were huge. Stars like we mentioned, Hopalong Cassidy, Buck Jones, Roy Rogers, country singers, actually, people that were making the Nashville circuit, singing songs and writing hit records would sometimes get courted by Hollywood. As now, they would court people from other walks of life who had some celebrity and get them to come play heroes and things in their Westerns. Those movies are pretty corny, like we talked about. But really, around 1939, when this movie Stagecoach comes out, is when the Western grows up, and people were aware of it at the time. A lot of modern critics will say Stagecoach is the pivotal grown-up Western. It's the thing that changed everything. That might be a little bit of a too easy, because there's any number of movies that hit all at the same time. Destry Rides Again is another one. There's, I think, Union Pacific that year. Stagecoach is certainly the most famous, but it was in the air for whatever reason. Everybody all at once decided that it's time for the Western to grow up. I mean, I think maybe it's as simple as we have a genre that's popular and we've
Obviously, people like it, and the kids that grew up with this want the adult version of it.
Right. And how can we give mom and dad a reason to stay? We know it's going to have the thrills for the kids. We know it's going to have the shootouts and stuff. Now, what can we do with the in-between stuff to make it a little bit more interesting? I mean, it's also worth noting, 1939, we have a giant evil existential threat on the horizon, and good versus evil narratives, clean good versus evil narratives, very popular among people of all ages at that time, because for obvious reasons. But Westerns became huge, became ubiquitous for kids and adults in 1959. By 1959, there were 26 primetime Westerns on TV. There were only 3 networks. And between those 3 networks, ABC, NBC, CBS, you have 26 primetime Westerns, which is insane. And that's things like Gunsmoke, Maverick, Have Gun, Will Travel, Rawhide, Wagon Train, all those titles we named earlier. We've already sort of talked about it, but do you guys have any other theories on why the Western was so big and why it continues to have such a hold on the popular imagination by proxy in our sci-fi stuff? And
Well, everything at the time was, we were such a young nation, and we had to figure out who we were as a people. You still had Ellis Island was a thing,
Right.
like how do we figure out what is uniquely American? What is it to be an American? What is it to be us? What is it to be a people? And Broadway was coming up with its own answers, and Hollywood was coming up with its own answers. And the Western was something that, the idea that we were all moving somewhere, we're all headed for something better,
right.
all willing to relocate for providing something better for ourselves or our families, willing to take risks, willing to explore the frontiers. That was something everybody had in common. And so westward expansion, even if you were living on the coast, well, you got there because of westward expansion. Your ancestors left Europe and went west across the Atlantic. And so that idea of we are a nation of immigrants and frontiersmen who are willing to just do insane things like cross the Atlantic Ocean and go up a river and start a new city and clear out woods and that was like one of the only things that everyone had in common.
Right.
And so, I mean, I think it's just that search for identity and something that we can all sort of connect to.
Yeah.
A common history. Like we just don't have a lot of that as a country, the way that
Greece has 4,000 years of mythology to draw on.
Exactly. Italy has, I mean, goodness. So yeah, we didn't have that. This is what we had.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think it definitely, I think that there's definitely something to that. I think especially when you think about all those Western TV shows and the big Westerns of the 40s and 50s, it's like, and even into the 60s, it's like, we've defeated Hitler. We're doing about as well economically as maybe we ever will. Everything's great. Now, who are we? And one of the ways that you look forward and figure out who you are, like you were just saying, is you look back, like,
yeah,
what is our identity? Actually,
what made us what we are today?
Right. And who are we moving forward, and what do we want to take from the old, and what do we want to get rid of? And
what's the essence of the American spirit, the American identity? Who is the hero that we all aspire to be?
Right. And I would argue that the essence of the American identity is John Wayne broke the law, but he's a good dude, and we're going to conspire to get him off the hook. I mean, I think your response to COVID is why it's important to talk about this movie. You know what I mean? Like how you see yourself in relation to society and law and all that as an American really does come out of our national mythology. And a movie like Stagecoach is important to our national mythology. So I'm not saying anything one way or another about COVID, but I will say if you're the kind of person who's more inclined to say, well, I want to do what's right, not what's law, and that is my American identity. You have a movie where you have a really popular, pivotal movie in the most popular genre where the entire moral is we're going to do what's right, not what's the law, not what society.
There's a higher law than the law.
There's a higher law than the law.
And it's our code.
And John Wayne's actually a cool guy, and he got in some trouble, but he and the prostitute lady deserve a second chance. And so we're just going to give it to him. I mean, I think that's all in there. I think for the boomer generation, for old people, even now, there is a lot of nostalgic wish fulfillment of, wow, sure was great when times were simple and men were men and women were women and everybody knew their place and everybody had a identity and a purpose that was really clear. Like that's doc, that's lady, that's banker, that's like everybody is. It's some of the same reason we like movies like It's a Wonderful Life, just that small town kind of everybody knows their role. Everybody, it's as close as American comes to embracing a caste system. It's just like, yay, I get to be the thing that I am. And that's comforting. Andy Griffith, we got the barber, we got the sheriff, we got the this. That's nice. The only other thing I would say about Westerns is that they are incredibly predictable. And they follow about 6 or 7 plots and follow them always to a T. I think that is not a flaw, but a feature.
Not
it's
a
a feature,
bug.
but not a bug. I think that's why people like them. I think people like the comfort of seeing the same old story again and again and again and again and again. And the whole appeal of genre is how can we do something that's comfortingly familiar and yet fresh and new. I want to see, I don't have any question that Sherlock Holmes is going to solve the mystery. It's just the fun is how.
Yeah.
There's no question in my mind that John Wayne's going to shoot the bad guys at high noon, but the question is how. And so this one has a nice little twist of the bad guy walks into the bar. It looks like maybe he's won, and then he collapses. And it's got some exceptional stunt work with the Indian attack and stuff like that.
Yeah, that was amazing.
Yeah, that action scene is tense and awesome.
It's
and
really good
we'll talk
stuff.
more about that, of course. But it's about the details. It's about existing within a formula.
Yeah, I couldn't believe that stunt work.
Yeah, no.
That's awesome.
It's
It
amazing.
was amazing.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
And it's not often you look back on a movie from the 30s and say, how did they pull that off?
Right. It reminded me a lot of our discussions about Buster Keaton and Harold Lloyd and people like that. Like, you're just actually watching an athlete do a real thing.
Somebody watching that movie in my house said, did they actually shoot the horses? Like, how do you make them do that? How do you, did they actually, was it okay? Like, did they actually shoot the horses?
And
happen?
I can give you the answer to that. They did kill horses.
Oh,
The way not on purpose. What they did is I forget what they called it, but they basically tripwired the horses. So when you see the horses go down, the horses are really going down. Many of the horses went down and were fine. You can even see it in the movie. Some horses get up.
Get right back up, but some break a leg, and that just means...
Yeah, some horses die. It's one of the things that activists now hate about these old movies is that you see a lot of horses bite it. And it's actually one of the things that was really seminal about Peter Jackson's Return of the King. You have a big horse charge, and you see horses going down left and right in the ride of the Rohirrim or whatever they call it. And they were able to do it all in CGI, and it looks really cool. It's that same kind of horse flipping over its, breaking its neck kind of thing. But we didn't have to kill any horses. There's an Errol Flynn movie called Charge of the Light Brigade that's really controversial these days, and this one gets some flack. All these old movies get flack because they were not above just hurting horses. So I'm sorry if that makes anybody like that scene less, but you are watching horses get hurt. Sorry.
Yeah.
Kept a lot of people employed and, made for some fine entertainment and shaped the American ethos. Doggone it. So, my goodness. Well, yeah.
Can't make an omelet without breaking a few legs.
That's it done.
That's good.
Let's talk about John Ford real quick. Probably the guy, along with David Lean, as I said, who most of the 70s movie brats look back on and draw from. Certainly The Searchers is just the movie. I mean, Scorsese's Taxi Driver is just a dark The Searchers. People have been remaking and remaking and remaking The Searchers ever since it came out. You could argue like the next 50 years, like from The Searchers till today, is just male filmmakers trying to figure out how to do their own The Searchers. Complicated hero who stands outside of things and has to dispense justice, but will never really be accepted by the civilization he's dying to protect, all that kind of stuff. So John Ford, I told this anecdote on our old Searchers episode that I defy you to find, but there's a story that I think is indicative of who he was. He's this character, right? He wears dark glasses. He's got an eye patch over his left eye. He's always smoking a pipe. His wife would famously give him a linen handkerchief every day to bring to set, which he would just chew on and chew it to shreds by the end of the day. So he's just like this really intense dude. He kicks people off of his set for bad language. He doesn't allow, he's kind of, at least wants the image, and maybe he is a true blue conservative kind of a dude. He's also got a lot of, as conservative dudes do, he's got a lot of gay rumors that swirl around him, including Maureen O'Hara in her autobiography saying that she saw him kissing a man. But Maureen O'Hara was never above printing the legend. So I don't know. We do know that after a movie that John Ford wouldn't drink a drop through a movie's production, and then after the movie he'd lock himself in his study and just get hammered, waste himself as soon as the movie was finished. So he's like this hard drinking, taciturn Irish dude, man's man kind of dude. There's a famous story where he's walking out of the studio. He's accosted by this silent movie actor, this now old man that used to work for him in the silence. And this guy begs John Ford for $200 for an operation for his wife. And John Ford just goes off on him, gets angry, pushes the guy down to the ground, says, "How dare you bother me? Get out of my face, get out of my life." Stalks back into his office. As soon as John Ford is gone, the guy gets up and kind of gathers himself, is really shaken, is walking away. John Ford's assistant comes running out and says, "Here's a check for $1,000. And here's John's limo. It's going to take you to your house where an ambulance is waiting to take your wife to the hospital." John Ford later, we do know, set this guy up with a pension for life because he was just like this old stuntman who was, worn out, I think. So he definitely, I don't know whether that story is true or not, but it is the truth of John Ford. He's the guy that wanted to cultivate this image as an Irish bastard, but
with a heart of gold.
With a heart of gold. Yeah. Exactly like his characters, right? John Martin Feeney, born in 1894 to Irish immigrant parents in Maine. His brother, Francis Ford, interestingly enough, worked in vaudeville and ended up in movies, worked for people like Thomas Edison and George Méliès and some of the really early pioneers of cinema, and actually became a prominent Hollywood actor, writer, director with his own production company. That's Francis Ford. And so he has his brother John come out to join him in 1914. And it's kind of a classic Cain and Abel brothers story where John's career goes up as Francis's career goes down. And by the mid-20s, John is a director of silent films and a very prestigious one of the directors of all directors. And Francis kind of lost his career. And there was always a little bit of love, but also resentment between the two of them. But nobody remembers Francis Ford, and everybody knows John Ford. So I guess John wins. John was Admiral Ford. He directed film crew for the Navy. He was there on D-Day. So he was a tough son of a gun. He got shrapnel in combat. He directed 140 films in his lifetime. There's about 60 of them that are lost forever because they just weren't preserved. They're from the silent era, which is insane. I mean, imagine knowing that, who's an author? You know, that Shakespeare wrote 60 plays that just got lost. I mean, Shakespeare probably did write 60 plays that just got lost.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, imagine knowing Tolstoy wrote 5 novels that we'd never see. But John Ford directed things like How Green Was My Valley, The Searchers, She Wore a Yellow Ribbon, My Darling Clementine, The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance, The Grapes of Wrath, The Quiet Man, Young Mr. Lincoln. All classics, all awesome. I think I've seen most of those, minus My Darling Clementine. They're all great. Young Mr. Lincoln's actually a lot of fun as far as Henry Fonda's playing Lincoln. Kind of, I mean, it's just everything you'd expect.
Yep.
Splitting those logs. I think he splits, you know, he's got a big log splitting contest in the movie.
I think My Darling Clementine's the only one of those movies I haven't seen.
Yeah, and that's another Fonda one. I think maybe it's just, if it had Wayne instead of Fonda, we probably both would have seen it, but instead it has Fonda. I've never seen The Grapes of Wrath, which won the Academy Award in 1940. I don't really love the novel, so I just never saw it. Set out the movie. But
I don't like the novel.
I think I watched it in class, actually.
Yeah, it's the kind of movie you would.
Yeah.
John Ford is known for, he is the opposite of Hitchcock, who we just talked about for our Psycho review. Didn't use a storyboard, really spare, unfancy camera movement. He preferred static medium shots or long shots. Usually, the thing he's most famous for is composing characters with really high depth of field so that we have these fantastic backgrounds, dramatic backgrounds in the background, and it's really well composed with a character in the foreground and background use. Which of course stands out because John Ford is the guy that really discovered and made use of, he didn't discover it, but he's the guy that said the Western should always be shot in Utah's Monument Valley, which is not where any of these stories would have taken place. The Old West never, none of these kinds of stories ever would have really taken place there. But now if you're making a Western cartoon, you draw those little bases and things, all because John Ford said that's just an awesome location to shoot. And so it was. He does like to use dramatic dolly shots, zoom ins, or dramatic tracking shots, but he does it for punctuation. A lot of times it'll just be static, 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 and then here's the one zoom in that's going to really tell, or the one tracking shot. The most famous tracking shot in this movie is, of course, you see the wagon and it tracks over, and then suddenly, there's a Indian party in the foreground of this shot.
That was awesome.
Yeah, it's amazing. So this guy wasn't above big theatrical flourishes. He just made them exactly that, flourishes, punctuation. It's not all flourishes. It's not all fancy stuff.
What did Kurosawa say about him? Did you quote that, or did I just read that?
I don't think I quoted it.
Kurosawa said something like, "My whole career, all I want is to be like, just get to the bottom part of the ladder that John Ford occupies," or something like that.
Yeah, which Kurosawa is very similar in the way that he. Yeah. If you think about Yojimbo, it's static, really well composed shots, and then a dramatic zoom or a dramatic dolly that will tell. And Spielberg can also be like that. A lot of your more, shall we say, formalist filmmakers will draw a lot from this style. I think that's everything we need to say about John Ford. I mean, he's just one of the guys. He's on the Mount Rushmore of directors. Like, he's right up there with Hitchcock and what's his face, Orson Welles and Spielberg and Kubrick. I mean, he's of that generation. He's arguably the most important. I mean, Citizen Kane's better, but is it really more influential than like Citizen Kane's how you make a fancy movie, but how you make a meat and potatoes movie is you use John Ford techniques. So yeah, let's talk about John Wayne. I think that's the other big thing we need to talk about. John Wayne was born in 1907, and his name was
Marion.
I can only pull first name.
It's triple M. M. Marion Mitchell Morrison. Sounds like a serial killer. But John Wayne, before he was
come up with it eventually, I just wasn't.
Yeah, no, I think you totally would have come up with it eventually. We just, we have to do a podcast. Before he was an icon, a stamp, a commemorative plate, or the bust that your dad has in his office, John Wayne
have all of them, including a portrait.
Your dad actually has a portrait of John Wayne in his office?
He has a painting of him, a portrait thing. It's not in his office anymore because my stepmom won't allow that sort of thing. But yeah, he had that. And he had a bust of him.
That's amazing. That is amazing. I think I'm on your stepmom's side, but still, that's amazing. John Wayne, before he was any of those things, he was a big, beefy, handsome guy, which, by the way, man, it's cool to see John Wayne as a stud in this movie. Like, I'm so used to old John Wayne. It is really striking to see young John Wayne in this particular movie. He attended UCal, University of California. He was going to be a football star, but he was benched because he broke a collarbone doing what?
Sorry.
Take a guess.
Wrestling.
Nope. What's your final answer, Jake?
I don't know. These are stories that I know, and I'm just not pulling anything.
Body surfing. John Wayne was a noted socialist on campus. I mean, just everything. Obviously, this stuff plays to the legend, so people like these stories, but I think they're true. A coach, once he broke his collarbone, got him a job as a prop boy at Fox Pictures. Raoul Walsh, another famous hard-bitten director with an eye patch, great action director, helped launch Humphrey Bogart's career. Raoul Walsh directed a lot of Errol Flynn and Bogey movies and things like that. Just saw John Wayne moving furniture as a prop boy and was like, I'm going to make him a lead in our B Westerns. And so he became kind of a B movie actor in these bad Westerns that were being made at the time. John Ford saw him in those movies and said, I want to develop this guy as a star. John Ford would always call him a big oaf and a dumb bastard, and could criticize his line delivery, how he walked, how he did everything on camera. But John Ford just saw rightfully that this guy, John Ford famously said after Howard Hawks made Red River, which was years later, John Ford's like, I didn't know John Wayne could act. Some other director discovered that. That's interesting. I'm going to use that now in The Searchers. But John Ford had no idea that John Wayne could act. He just thought, this is a guy that has that quality that can exist on camera and compel your attention with authority. And so I'm going to develop him that way. And the studio people named him after General Anthony Wayne. It's a famous general. And so he became John Wayne. But he was not John Wayne until such time as he became John Wayne. He did not serve in World War II, which he always felt bad about. He was under contract, and there's conflicting stories. Maybe he couldn't. He wrote letters to John Ford, who was, over there getting shrapnel wounds, saying he was going to. People will argue that his lack of service in World War II was what drove him to be such a crusty conservative in his later life to kind of atone for that. I mean, he was mad about the lack of support for the boys in Nam. He was just a pretty crusty dude in some good ways and in some bad ways. He was provocatively crusty, I mean, this is how the world should be, and this is how we should treat our soldiers, and this is how we should treat our women. And people tend to speculate, at least, that he wouldn't have been like that quite as much if he hadn't have done a dumb thing and somehow maybe gotten out of serving in World War II, or maybe he just really was under contract and couldn't. Anyway, John Ford took a hit to put him in. Like, the studios were not in, they wanted a star for Stagecoach, and John Ford said, John Wayne's ready. He's worked his way through the ranks. He's my guy. And so John Ford made the movie for, I think, half the amount of money in order to have John Wayne. You'll notice that John Wayne doesn't get first billing in this movie. The lady, I forget her name off the top of my head, but Dallas, the prostitute, gets first billing. She was the biggest star in the movie. But that was not a problem after the movie. After the movie came out, John Wayne was immediately John Wayne forever and ever. Amen. Not a particularly nice guy. 3 wives, lots of affairs. Not the hero that your dad wishes he was. His drawl was real. His walk was a put on.
Yeah.
He would pinch his buttocks. Basically, that's how you do the John Wayne walk. Is you just
you squeeze.
You squeeze, and he would do that on purpose. He is one of the. I feel like I say this about every third person we talk about, but he is one of the first people to be really savvy in a very modern way as to his image and as to his public persona, and to play to it. And that's the joy and the doom of his later movies, is that he's really not challenging himself. He's just come hang out with John Wayne movies.
He's cashing checks that he earned as a young man.
Right.
And if that was his strategy, it worked out.
And McClintock was the biggest moneymaker of 1963. So people really liked that stuff and appreciated having it and loved living in that world. And I always say we should actually do McClintock one of these days, just because it'd be so fun to speculate about what that movie actually represents about the psyche of people then and now. But John Wayne did those kinds of movies. He also did, he won an Academy Award for True Grit. That's not a cash-in performance. This just isn't a cash-in performance. He still did interesting stuff. The other thing that's really interesting about John Wayne, especially when you compare him to other stars of the time like Cary Grant, is that he aged on screen really gracefully and allowed himself to age. At a certain point in the 50s, The Searchers maybe is the swivel point. He goes from playing the hero to playing the dad figure. He's always the hero, but at a certain point, he's actually has age-appropriate women, usually Maureen O'Hara, and he has like there's usually a junior character. There's a younger it's Dean Martin and Rio Bravo.
Kind of like what Tom Cruise just did in Top Gun Maverick.
Yeah, except for Tom Cruise is much more selfish in the way that he does it.
Oh,
I think
know.
Tom Cruise wants you to know this is a Tom Cruise man, and so does John Wayne. But I think John Wayne is always nicer to his cohort of people, like, let's make sure that everybody has a fun line and a gag and a cool action moment. And of course, John Wayne gets the choicest stuff, but it's not as selfish, I think. But yeah, very savvy guy in terms of manipulating his public image. You watch old, like Charade is one of Cary Grant's last movies. It's a great movie, but Cary Grant is going on 60 and Audrey Hepburn is his girl in that movie, and she's going on 25. And it's just, no matter how charming Cary Grant is, you just can't quite squint enough to get past that. And a lot of the later period Cary Grants are like that, and other stars of the time. But John Wayne just knew how to be savvy with his image and to adapt it. And so he stayed relevant, and he stayed awesome, and he stayed iconic, and people still love him to this day. The big question that the critics always want to ask is John Wayne a good actor? What do you guys think?
Yes.
Yeah,
he is. He's absolutely a good actor, and I don't care what anybody says. They say he's not because he's in bad movies where he's mailing it in the latter half of his career. But you can't go back and watch some of these other movies, and he's got. Yeah, you can say that he's a bad actor in the same way that you can say Will Smith is a bad actor, in the same way that you can say, in the same way you can say Tom Cruise is a bad actor. You know what? He has the charisma, he has the star power. He actually can play a role, he can pull off emotion, and he earned his stripes. And so
I think that's absolutely true. I think if great acting is about transformation, if it's about putting on a wig and becoming someone else, if great acting is Jared Leto stuff, then John Wayne's terrible at that.
Sure, fine.
But if great acting is just being up there on screen, just existing in a way that
is compelling and interesting and that people want to watch,
that extends even to his worst movies, because his worst movies, nothing happens. John Wayne just walks around and gets drunk with his friends and whatever.
And carries an entire movie.
Right, and just carries the movie on his back just simply through being a charismatic guy that you like
to watch on screen.
Right, and that you're compelled by. He's got that, whatever you want to call it, he's got that star quality where you're just like, I want to look at this guy. I want to watch this guy. I'm interested in how he's going to respond in any given situation. It doesn't matter.
And he's always going to be interesting in how he does it. Like the drawl, the facial expression, the tilt of his head, the way he stands, the way he walks, the way he moves, the way he looks at somebody. Like he's got a point of view and a perspective that's like compelling and interesting, no matter what dopey movie he's in.
Or no matter what his sort of position in the, like in this movie, it's a perfect example. Like he has the most authority, I'd say, of anyone in the movie, and yet he's in shackles half the time. He's lower than everybody, like he's literally sitting physically on the ground, lower, physically in the carriage, and
sometimes in chains,
and sometimes in chains, and yet
he's the man with gravity, and who's like
he's deciding conflict and mediating tension the whole time.
Right. There's nobody that's more of an authority, not Mr. Gambler dude, certainly not the fatuous banker. I mean, I don't even know who else it would be.
Well, the doctors
the sheriff or the marshal.
Right. The doctor actually has a certain moral authority, I guess, that John Wayne doesn't have. But in terms of just owning
but
the
only
room,
one that he puts on when he's needed. Otherwise, he's going to be
right. Well,
comedically sipping, the dude's bourbon.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, he plays the fool, but he's the hidden what's the word I'm looking for?
Yeah,
John Wayne isn't the one who pronounces the moral. He just carries the authority. But the doctor is the one who gets to pronounce.
Yeah, he's kind of the Greek
I'm actually the
chorus
dad here.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Good old Uncle Billy.
Good old Uncle Billy, yeah. Arguably, this a more rewarding role than Uncle Billy. Arguably. John Ford spent $2,500 for the rights to an Ernest Haycock story. He tried 20th Century Fox, MGM, Paramount, Columbia, and Warner Brothers finally had to go independent in order to get half of the money because he wanted to use John Wayne. He had to give Claire Trevor, who plays Dallas, first billing. She's the star. This was John Ford's first picture to use Monument Valley, Utah, so this is like the one. I have a quote here from New York Times writer Frank S. Nugent, who wrote an article for The Old Grey Lady in March of 1939. He said, "We formed a habit of taking our horse operas in Class B stride, but now all that is now changed. If in principle we look askance upon the grand horse opera, in practice we must admit a wholly immature delight over," so he still doesn't want to quite give it to him, but a wholly immature delight over Stagecoach. He, Ford, has taken the old formula, has applied himself and his company to it with care, zeal, and craftsmanship that might have been accorded the treatment of a bright new theme. So he's like, hey, they're doing a old story, but
in a new way.
Did you ever, sorry, just to go back to John Wayne for a sec, did you ever hear the rumor that he became a Christian? So here, I'm going to relay this like fifth hand rumor to you. And I wish I could remember more details. I did just text my dad, but I don't think he'll answer. So my dad talked with someone on the phone in his job as an insurance inspector or something who had connections to old Hollywood and who was telling him these rumors that before he died, John Wayne became an actual Christian and even started telling his kids about him. But this was like on his deathbed.
Right.
And if I could remember who told my dad the thing, it'd be more compelling. But
it wouldn't shock me. I mean, John
Wayne...
Wayne
would also just be part of the legend that half would be wish fulfillment for half of his fans.
Of course it would be.
So it just all...
Yeah.
I will say, I think it was a little hard earlier when I said, he became a crusty conservative. I mean, yes, he made some silly movies like McClintock, but a lot of the things that he did and said, we would agree with. I mean, the story that I always like is they're about halfway through shooting McClintock, and he's like, Maureen, when are you going to just go home? And she's like, well, okay, if you say so. And so she retired from acting for about a decade until her husband, who she loved a lot, died. And then she came back. We actually probably missed a lot of great Maureen O'Hara performances for about a decade because John Wayne just said, go be a wife and mother. So you'll hear a lot of stories like that you'll actually kind of like. You'll hear those kinds of stories about John Ford too. I mean, they definitely were not fake conservative, I don't think. I mean, they believed some of this stuff. They just didn't live up to it in their personal lives. John Ford maybe did. I mean, there's the gay rumors, but he was a one-woman man as far as we know. Of course, there's always scandalous rumors about every Hollywood celebrity. John Wayne, definitely not a one-woman man. There have been 2 remakes of Stagecoach. Did you guys know this?
I knew there was one.
I kind of like the cast for the 60s version. It's got Anne Margaret, famous Anne Margaret from Bye Bye Birdie as Dallas. She'd be a good Dallas, I guess. Maybe too in her prime of a Dallas. But it's got Red Buttons as Mr. Peacock, the whiskey salesman. It's got Bing Crosby as the doctor.
Oh my goodness. The number of times Bing Crosby is
In bad remakes of
classic movies.
That is amazing.
Was it Philadelphia Story?
Philadelphia Story did across from what's his face?
So
Right.
Oh.
And you could even kind of argue that White Christmas is a bad remake of a great movie, Holiday Inn. But White Christmas is great in its own way. Slim Pickens plays Buck the stage driver, which is perfect because Slim Pickens is the modern hey, everybody guy. Stephanie Powers plays Mrs. Mallory. Stephanie Powers is the daughter in McClintock. She's kind of a famous girl from that era. Anyway, I just thought that was kind of interesting. I'll talk very briefly about the other cast. Clara Trevor, who plays Dallas the prostitute, or I guess technically she's a dance hall girl. We can't say prostitute in this movie, but who are we kidding? She always played bad blondes. She had a line of great bad blondes that she played. She played in the Philip Marlowe movie Murder My Sweet, one of the best Philip Marlowe movies. Born to Kill, Key Largo with Humphrey Bogart. She's in a lot of great classic noir kind of stuff back then. Andy Devine, you guys already sussed out what he's most famous for among our generation, at least, which is Friar Tuck in that truly awful, my most controversial of takes, that truly awful Disney.
Totally wrong.
Robin Hood.
False.
There's going to be a big to-do in Nottingham. He says stuff like that. Thomas Mitchell, of course, Uncle Billy. And he's Mr. O'Hara, Scarlett's dad in Gone with the Wind. Those are his big.
Interesting.
But I think he's most well known for this. Donald Meek is the name of the guy that plays the whiskey salesman, which is an awesome name for him.
Yep.
And he always put upon little bespectacled. I can't think of one right now. John Carradine as Hatfield.
I kept trying to find what I knew him from.
Yeah, I did too, and
I
I couldn't
He
find
did
it.
look familiar.
But I know I've seen him play
Yeah,
the exact same character.
like the
and-
bank inspector and
yeah.
It's a Wonderful Life, but it's not him. But,
No.
it's roles like that.
Right. Yeah, I don't know, but he's great at playing those kinds of guys. I mean, he's just a wonderful type. John Carradine plays Hatfield. He was a Shakespearean actor, if you can imagine that. He played Dracula famously a couple times. And John Ford loved to use him. Cecil B. DeMille also
Is he
loved
the
to use him.
father of David?
Yes, he's the father of Keith Carradine, David Carradine. All the Carradine dynasty comes from
Wow.
John. He plays Aaron in the Ten Commandments. Certain kind of person might remember him from that. Certain kind of person is me. We grew up watching the Ten Commandments every Easter or whatever, whenever they had it on TV.
We did too.
Cecil B. DeMille used him any number of times. Cecil B. DeMille liked his wooden Shakespearean delivery. Actually, he's quite good in this. I shouldn't make fun. But that's all the context on John Ford, John Wayne, Stagecoach.
But wait, Nathan, I see that the other remake of Stagecoach in the 80s was a country music star-filled
That's right. I forgot about that with Johnny Cash.
smash.
Right? Yeah.
Willie Nelson, Chris Christopherson.
Yeah, it's like all the kind of country and western stars from that time.
That's amazing.
It's so weird. Boy. Well, what'd you guys think about Stagecoach?
It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I liked it a lot.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening, everybody.
Good stuff.
I think I might have oversold it a little bit. I've been telling people like this is a classic. It's the best John Wayne movie I've ever seen. I kind of got excited about it after I watched it. I'd seen it before a long time ago, but I hadn't seen it recently. But watching it again, I was just like, this is really classy, and this is a really good story, and it's kind of emotional, and the actions, like the big action scene is just terrific.
Yeah.
I mean, like this is like George Miller stuff of its time. Like this is more exciting than most modern action scenes. So
Yeah.
maybe I overhyped it a little bit. I mean, it is basic. I mean, it is like you've seen it ripped off 1,000 times. You've seen this exact plot. Even if you've never seen a Western, you've seen some variation of this exact plot, whether it's M. Night Shyamalan's Elevator or whatever that thing was called that I never saw, where it's like a bunch of people trapped in an elevator with the devil or something. Remember
right.
that?
Up. I think that's what it's called.
Yeah, maybe. Wasn't that the
No.
Pixar?
Yes, I'm just kidding. I don't know what it was called. It looked terrible.
So I don't know. I mean, would you guys recommend this to our listeners? Do you think it transcends? Do you think it's just an interesting academic piece? Like,
Oh, it's a fun little movie. It's a fun date night movie. It's a fun movie to, if you want to introduce your kids to the Western as a genre,
right?
It'll do just fine.
I'd say because
I don't know that the quality of what we have. It's not just black and white. It's got some real lo-fi moments that make it a challenge. It would make it a challenge, I think, for kids.
Yeah, I think that's true. This movie, unfortunately, was independently financed, and they just didn't take care of the print as well as maybe a big studio with a big vault would have done.
Mm-hmm.
And the print, the rights have kind of bounced around, and it's not in color. And I think for those reasons, it's maybe not as, people don't go back to it as much as even something like She Wore a Yellow Ribbon or some of those other Ford Wayne, not The Searchers,
right,
things. But it's every bit they're equal in its original form. It's, maybe you have to use a little imagination to see past some of the film decay at some points, but that didn't bother me too much.
Nah.
But yeah, I don't know. There's probably not a lot to say about this movie, but I'll take it through us through it real quick. So you have that short prologue where they're like, that Geronimo, he really sucks. And then the guy's like, sir, Cable, it's Geronimo. And it takes all of about 30 seconds. And then you have Andy Devine earning every cent of his paycheck by being around for all that exposition. There's like 12 minutes of exposition, and Andy Devine's just there to be like, gosh, I'm just dispensing exposition here. Your character's kind of like this, and the situation that we're going into is kind of like this. And he just does all that stuff. Who are your guys' favorite of our 9 strange people? Who'd you really find yourself rooting for and responding to, and who didn't you like? I'll tell you, I didn't like that banker guy. What a jerk!
Banker guy was a jerk.
He was a jerk the whole time.
Movie shot during Depression.
I think the gambler was one of the most interesting.
Yes,
simply because it's like, he's a really bad guy. Oh, but is he a bad? Yeah, he's a really bad guy. He's the bad guy. He's a bad. But did
you think he was all that bad of a guy? I mean, he was obviously coming from something shady, and you were obviously supposed to not want him to shoot Mrs. What's-Her-Face at the end.
Right.
But also his intention was to keep her from, worse.
Yeah. It's just like, there was this complexity there. It was like, he's going to try to seduce the married woman.
Right.
No, that's his whole angle.
He was trying to atone for something having to do with her father. At least that's what I was
well, and
guessing.
I love that they never tell you. It's a great example.
Right.
Yeah, that was great.
That
was great.
I don't know. In terms of like actual, having some, and then he dies.
Right. And doesn't get to finish his, like, if you see my father, Judge what's his name, tell him, which is pretty great.
Yeah, that's pretty great.
Yeah, he's one of my favorites.
I wouldn't say he's my favorite. I just thought.
I mean, I hate to be basic, but I think my favorite is John Wayne, but also Doc. I mean, Doc's.
They're supposed to be your favorite.
Yeah, they're supposed to be my favorite. I'll tell you who else I didn't like was that Law and Order League. All those old crones, drumming Doc and
shaming the prostitute,
shaming the prostitute, driving her out of town.
That was pretty fun.
I just like this typecasting of let's get these old, dried up looking ladies to play the Law and Order League.
How about
play the Christians?
Right.
How about Senor? I think the Apaches no attack me. I think. Guys, awesome.
Awesome.
Yeah, this is not a movie.
He's got his Apache wife that
who's like clearly Spanish, singing Spanish songs.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Oh my goodness. John Ford does have a corny sense of humor. Even The Searchers, which is so regarded as this iconic, dark, like it's got all these like corny, like fist fight, like I'm in love with your woman and you're in love with my woman. I'm gonna punch you into some water, kind of. This movie has like Andy Devine, like somebody's talking about scalping, so he like takes his hat and puts it over his head, and he's like, cowering. It's like all this kind of stuff.
It's amazing.
And of course, if it's worth saying, 1939, we're still in the Great Depression, so it's just so easy to write an evil banker and give him nothing redeeming. to do, give him a bunch of stupid speeches, have him get in the carriage and like man spread and be annoying to all the ladies. And
Yeah, he's nails on the chalkboard the whole time. He wasn't even fun evil. He was just nails on the chalkboard. Like, I'm an annoying person.
Yeah, you kind of wanted like Mr. Potter or somebody with a little bit more, somebody that would have had a little bit more fun with it. But maybe you actually hate this guy more than you would an actor that was having too much fun with it. So he's a better sort of scapegoat to kick around. But so we go on our journey. We meet John Wayne. He's got that one of the best "this is a movie star now" entrances of all time, with a really dramatic zoom in. Like, hey, it's John Wayne, and he's iconic now.
Isn't he handsome?
Isn't he handsome? He is handsome here.
Mm-hmm.
It is amazing to see John Young. I mean, it is one of those things where you sometimes forget, like, what you know, you're so used to dad bod sort of old man Tom Hanks, and then you watch like, you know, Splash or something like that. I don't know, Big or something. You're like, oh, that's why this guy became a star. Like, this guy has some real virile energy and charisma and stuff, and you know, you still like him now, but like, he didn't become famous doing what he's doing now. He became famous for that. It's nice to see John Wayne and be like, oh yeah, this is like a young leading man dude.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have the Dry Fork Way Station, where the coach stops for food. Got the dinner table scene where everyone's like, we don't like prostitutes.
We're going to sit at the other end of the table.
And John
Wayne's going to act like it must be me.
That was really sweet.
Yeah, it was
super sweet.
Yeah, it made me tear up.
Yeah.
Good for you, John Wayne. Yeah. I don't know.
And that's, I mean, even saying it that way is just like the fun of the iconic character he created.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you really everybody ends up believing that that's just who John Wayne is. And he happens to be caught on film being himself.
I think that's so true. I mean, even down to him riding a horse or cocking a rifle or whatever. It's like, I just believe that this guy could do those things. It doesn't matter knowing about his history. It doesn't matter knowing he was just some himbo from UCal that became a prop boy. Like, it just doesn't matter.
Pretty boy surfer dude.
Yeah, John Wayne.
Named Marion.
Right. Marion Morrison. The guy that broke his collarbone surfing and couldn't even make it as a football player. It's just the guy has such authenticity. Like, I don't think Clint Eastwood has the same authenticity as a Western star.
No way.
Like, I just think,
Well, no.
you just always believe that John Wayne knows how to do the things that he's doing, and whether he's shooting a gun,
is the man he's playing.
Yeah, I don't know that you could name an an actor that has more of that sort of like, I just believe he is who he's playing. Like if you want to define great acting as that, then John Wayne might be the best that there ever was, because you just never, ever, unless he's playing Genghis Khan or something that's totally outside of his wheelhouse, you just never question the authority of John Wayne.
The authority, the character, the integrity, the code.
Yeah.
The I am who I am, what you see is what you get.
And he is just John Wayne. I mean, it's not, what's his name? I guess he's the Ringo Kid in this, but it doesn't matter. He's John Wayne. John Wayne, he's going to be nice to this fallen woman, and
he's not going to care what anybody thinks.
Yep. He used to be a good cowhand, but things happen.
That's just what men do.
That's just what men do. And he can pull off stuff like, he says, I'm trying to remember, and I seen you someplace before. And she says, yeah. And then she says, no, you haven't. And he said, I wish I had, though. And it's like,
he made it so sweet.
He makes it really sweet. I really like the love story in this movie. I think it's pretty great. I think that's maybe what got me excited enough to declare new masterpiece. All right. So we're back in the Stagecoach. We're on our second leg of the trip towards Apache Wells. We got snow coming down. The businessman's giving stupid speeches about workers, they're the worst. It's just like designed to get the audience booing this guy. Also, that we can show up in town and they can be like, you're under arrest.
Oh, you thought the telegraph was still broken, didn't you?
Well, it's not. Yeah, we get to the Mexican outpost with the obviously Mexican Apache woman. and Lucy's baby is born. Oh no, is Doc gonna sober up in time?
I bet it'll be funny finding out.
Yep. That's one of those ones that's been done so
Pour
many times.
coffee down his gullet.
Yeah.
Splash him with cold water. Oh no, he's going to be angry. No, he says, do it again. Hilarious.
I love the science of how alcohol works in every movie. It's like if Jeff Goldblum's dad has like one good idea for how to kill the aliens, then Jeff Goldblum instantly sobers up. And it's like, as long as when you need to, you can just gather your strength and sober up within a couple of minutes.
Yep.
Someone sparks your imagination or someone's in trouble. And we have some nice redemption for Mr. I mean, he didn't need to be redeemed, but some nice humanity for Mr. Peacock. He's really solicitous of everybody being quiet for the lady and the baby and everything like that. He's obviously a family man.
Yeah.
And
that was sweet.
And then you got that great iconic love scene between John Wayne and Dallas where he says, I've decided based on 5 minutes of interaction,
we should get married.
We should get married. And she says, you don't know who I am. And he says, I know all I want to know.
Well, it does capture cinematically all the stuff that our society hates and denies about men and women.
Yes.
In just a few minutes and makes you buy it. I mean, it made me buy it. I was like, it made me want to cry. I probably did tear up during that scene.
Yeah, I mean, down to like the thing that changes his mind is he sees her
holding the baby.
Yeah, he sees her holding a baby, and he's like, okay, this woman's obviously wifey material. So
it was really sweet.
Yeah, it's sweet, and he doesn't care about her past ultimately. And if
and he says so.
And if anyone, which everybody to some extent does, has a marriage where they had to work through the past one way or another, and then a scene like that can be very moving. For perfect people with no pasts, probably not a very moving scene, but
we don't recommend this movie to them.
Right, yeah, we don't recommend this podcast for them. I'm trying to think who else has more authority than John Wayne. I mean, not authority like he's a macho dude, but just the authority to say, I know all I want to know and make that line play. Like, who else could do that? I think people like Morgan Freeman or Denzel, maybe only black people are allowed to have that kind of
yeah, I'm trying to think too.
Dignity and like, I'm just going to decide for
Harrison
us.
Ford could have.
Yeah, Harrison Ford in the day. Although he probably would be playing sideways to it one way or another.
Mm-hmm.
But Harrison Ford.
But he would have actually sold it.
He could have sold it. It was something like The Fugitive.
Yeah, I agree.
I fought with this man. He, a one-armed man. Do you think I murdered my wife? Like Dr. Richard Kimball has that kind of authority for sure. Okay, I think we're to the big stunt scene, which is amazing.
Yep.
This movie has a genuinely thrilling action scene. I don't think you have to do any sort of that's what it was like for old movies sort of stuff. It's just like you're watching great editing and great stunts.
Mm-hmm.
And it has one of the most famous stunts in all of cinema, the great stuntman Yakima Canutt, who's in things like Ben-Hur. He's just like half the famous stunts that you remember from this era are him. And he does that famous stunt where he plays the Indian who falls in between the wheels of the horse, and the horses go on either side of him. And he actually did that. I mean, wasn't any way to fake that. And John Ford made sure to have him stand up at the end of the shot so that we could know that
no man died and
that this was an awesome stunt, as opposed to we just threw a dummy under the. Yeah. John Ford was asked why the Apache warriors didn't simply shoot the horses to stop the stagecoach, and he said that because that would have been the end of the movie. So I guess that's a plot hole.
Why didn't Tolkien send the eagles?
Yeah, exactly.
The eagles weren't willing, Jake. Right. It's difficult negotiating with eagles, Jake.
It is difficult negotiating.
You know what I think? I think that Gandalf, when he said "Fly, you fools," was making it really obvious that they should have just called the eagles.
Oh, is that what he was doing?
That's what he was doing.
You guys are morons for not just using the eagles.
How
which this wasn't happening.
How more obvious could he have been when he said "Fly, you fools"? And they just ran.
No.
And you've got John Wayne jumping up the line of horses.
Yeah, that's pretty great.
It's
too.
awesome.
Yeah, it's just a great action scene, and you have the suspense of, is Hatfield going to be able to shoot the new mom? And he doesn't. He gets killed before he can.
Do you ever see Geronimo actually get killed or anything? Or
I don't.
I was trying to pick him out.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think the
during the
cavalry
scene.
just shows up. I mean, this is a movie where the cavalry.
The name Geronimo is an obvious Indian name that stands in for all the bad guys. That's it, right?
I guess so, but there is a shot in when they see the stagecoach.
Yeah, we got
that
a
seems to
chief or
indicate
something. Yeah.
right.
I
just
assumed that.
was
I assumed
him.
it was too, because at the beginning of the movie, they're like Geronimo. He's got it in for us.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then we have a little bit of an anticlimax, maybe, after such a great action scene in the sort of second act. But we've got the final showdown between John Wayne and whoever those guys are, whatever their names are, the Jerkington brothers.
I like that because I didn't know what the movie was going to do. I wasn't sure it was going to give me a happy ending exactly.
Yeah, it feels like it might be headed to... it feels morally like John Wayne almost has to die there, because obviously he can't end up with Dallas, and if she's not going to die, then I guess
he needs to.
He can.
Yeah.
But then the movie's just like, whatever.
Which I kind of liked.
I was happy. I was happy. And I don't think it feels earned, I think. Their love story is told sweetly enough that...
Yeah.
And you just know Dallas had a heart of gold. She never wanted to be like that. It was society that made, and those darn... the League
She's
of,
an orphan or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Sounds right.
Something like that. Although, if you're a prostitute and your name is Dallas, like you're named for an entire location, that says something about what the height of your prostitutedom. So, geez Louise. Anyway. Subtext in movies.
Subtext. That final shootout's really cool.
I like the final shootout.
It's pretty great. It's pretty great because it feels like you definitely feel like he could easily die.
Mm-hmm.
And you see the risk he's going to take, the way he's going to
dive,
beat him. Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah, and we give Doc a little moment where he stops the bad guys.
Oh, that was awesome too.
Stacking the deck.
That's really fun too.
Yeah, it's just a lot of fun. And then Doc and Sheriff, what's his name, Curly or whatever, they decide to save Dallas and Ringo from the blessings of civilization. And they go off arm in arm to have a drink. Together. Just one. Yeah, I mean, John Ford doesn't use any... He's very simple the way that he tells the story. The acting performances are all exactly what they need to be. I don't know that there's a lot to actually talk about with this movie, but it's pretty iconic and it's pretty great. And I recommend that people seek it out. You can probably find crummier versions and better versions. I think if you go to HBO Max right now, you can find the Criterion edition, which is as cleaned up as this movie gets. And some of it's pristine, but then other parts of it are less pristine. Final thoughts on Stagecoach, Ben?
Really fun, really enjoyable.
How many strange people out of 9 would you give?
Oh, I don't know. Maybe I'll give it 9. Yeah.
There's no reason to not give it 9.
Yeah, there's no reason to not give it 9.
There's nothing objectionable. There's no qualifications that you would make in recommending it to someone. It's a good movie. There's just nothing in it not to like.
Yeah. I mean, like you guys said, the copy that's come down to us is not as great, so you could dock it
that's it, but that's not a fault of the movie.
Right.
Nope.
Yeah.
Nah.
As an artifact, as a text.
It's just good stuff.
It's pretty great. Yep. Okay, so we all give it 9 stagecoaches, or no, 9 strange people out of 9.
Yep.
Now I'm trying to think, if you're going to watch one John Wayne movie, what movie? I suppose I just tell people to watch The Searchers. The thing about The Searchers is not that much fun for, like, if you were introducing an 8-year-old.
You're not going to show that movie to your kids.
Oh, here's the other thing I thought we could do. So what John Wayne movie do you introduce kids?
The Quiet Man.
The Quiet Man sure does. Hey, it's kind of adult.
Yeah. I mean, I use The Cowboys, but The Cowboys actually ends up having some things in it that you're like, oh yeah, I forgot that. Oh yeah, I forgot that was. Oh yeah.
Huh.
But it's just like,
I have a soft spot for like Rio Bravo and El Dorado and
too.
Some of those things. There's
those kind of like fun.
There's like a middle ground. There's the total hangout movies like North through Alaska or McClintock, and then there's the serious, awesome ones like Searchers, and then there's kind of the
Rio Bravo,
Sons
El
of Katie,
Dorado.
El Dorado. Those are some of. If I'm just gonna sit down and watch a John Wayne movie just to relax, those would be the ones. I think, as much as anything.
But if you wanted to sit down to relax, you're not going to pick a John Wayne movie.
I might, but I don't say that most people would. Hondo actually is one of my favorites. Hondo rules. Hondo has a moment that you guys both know, even if you don't know it's from Hondo, which is where the kid's like, I can't swim. And John Wayne's like, no better time to learn. And he
throws her in.
I think it's a boy actually, into the water. Yeah. A moment
But he repeats that in McClintock, doesn't he?
No. I mean,
No?
there's lots of people very sillily falling into water and mud and stuff. But
Well, yeah, in that fight at the end. But I thought there was...
But I don't think that, maybe he does do it more than once. I know many a dad was inspired by that moment, famously. So here's how you can learn to swim. Drowned. Or swim. It's up to you. That's a good movie. That's a fun classic John Wayne movie. Highly recommended. All right, guys, very quickly, let's cast the modern Stagecoach.
Oh, man.
Who do you got? Who's playing Dallas? ScarJo?
Oh.
It's going to be beautiful, but slightly past her prime. Or maybe you just want to go beautiful. How about Jennifer Lawrence?
No.
Oh?
No. I say no. Man, I don't feel very inspired about this.
Oh, well, we'll come back. Dallas is hard. What about Mr. Peacock, the whiskey salesman?
I feel like I'm trying to think of actors, and it's hard.
Who's the most meek?
This is just hard. This is a hard one, man. You'd think it would be. They're all types, but it's like we just don't have the same. Let's see. Can we put Tom Cruise anywhere? Can we put Mark Ruffalo anywhere? Can we put? I'm just throwing out guys that I like.
Mark Ruffalo plays Curly the sheriff,
or the whiskey salesman.
Mark Ruffalo would be an interesting whiskey salesman.
Yeah, you could have him do it. I mean, he can be a great.
I mean, who are you gonna play that role? Seth Rogen? Like,
no, not someone who thinks the whiskey salesman is an idiot. You have to have a comedian who doesn't think the whiskey salesman is an idiot.
Right.
Steve Carell. No, it's just not. It's not good comedic actors that you are gonna pull.
Yeah.
Don't we have any?
Well, what about Buck the driver? He could be Seth Rogen. Hate to say it. Man, this is hard.
This movie's making me sad that we're creating. I'm like, I want to see this depressing Stagecoach.
It makes me sad to think there's no one that.
Eugene Levy. He can be the.
I can't picture.
He's
him. Who's that?
Jim's dad.
This guy.
Oh, Eugene Levy? Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
all right.
He can be the...
Who's he playing?
Whiskey salesman.
All right, we've cast one part.
Oh,
Eugene Levy is the whiskey salesman.
All right.
Okay, Hatfield the card shark, the gambler.
That can be anybody.
Ethan Hawke in his prime.
I love it. Ethan Hawke. All right.
I mean, Ethan Hawke is that guy, basically.
Yep, Ethan Hawke, just a weird, sort of not charismatic.
I like. He's pretty great, though.
No. Ringo Kid. Who do we got for the Ringo Kid?
Oh, man.
It's tough. We'll come back.
I know who Hollywood would cast. Maybe it's a bad choice, but it's Harry Styles. That's who Hollywood would cast today.
I don't like that, but yes.
I was in Barnes and Noble the other day, and I watched as one of the workers threw a stack of Harry Styles magazines across the floor and said, "Screw this guy! I'm so sick of him." Because every magazine stand, there are like 5 Harry Styles displays, and he's on the cover of like 10 or something different magazines, and it's just like...
What have I seen him in except Dunkirk? Nothing, right?
Probably only Dunkirk, because he really isn't a good actor, I don't think, and hasn't really broken through in anything. He's in that Don't Worry Darling movie that's big right now, which is supposed to be terrible, and he's supposed to be terrible in it.
Gambler, if you want some more fun with the ambiguity of the gambler, Cillian Murphy.
Oh, sure. Cillian Murphy should be in our movie.
Oh, yeah.
Cillian Murphy's
He's fun.
Great.
All right, but we already had him.
Then let's make John Krasinski the somebody. Because they were fun together in that one movie. Oh, no, they weren't even together in that movie. I just made a weird association.
I'm just trying to think of a movie that they were in.
They weren't.
Okay.
It was just Cillian Murphy replaced John Krasinski as the leading male in Quiet Place.
Oh, okay. Oh, hey, that lady, she could do something.
Oh, yeah.
She could probably...
Emily
Blunt.
Should we just make her Dallas so we have a Dallas?
Sure.
She's yeah, sure.
I mean, she's arguably better as Mrs. Mallory, but Emily Blunt can do everything.
Yeah, that's good. Oh. Sheriff, he's old enough. You could give him, Noah Emmerich. No,
Sure.
Yeah, that guy's awesome. Truman's best friend.
Yep, I'll give it to him. All right. What about the banker? Surely there's a fatuous idiot that is in Hollywood that...
A very dour Jason Alexander.
Jason Alexander is the banker. Fine. In the interest of time, I'm putting down
Right.
Jason. Okay, but what about the doctor?
That's terrible.
Okay.
All right, fine. I'm deleting it. I'm deleting it.
All right.
Trying to get this podcast done, but
You're the one who inserted the sprinkle at the end of it.
all right. Okay, so what about Doc Boone? Surely there's somebody who's just
Gonna be super fun.
awesome
to
for
have
Doc
as-
Boone.
I mean, that could be Mark Ruffalo if you wanted.
Yeah, but it's got to be older, and
He's getting old.
I can.
All right,
I
fine.
admit Mark Ruffalo could do it,
But yeah, let's pick someone else. I'm just having trouble thinking of actors. Sorry,
who's in their 60s? Daniel Craig in one of his
Daniel Craig actually could. Daniel Craig can do. Yeah, we can do that if you want.
It's funny. My mind went to Tom Hanks, just giving him a side character, be a comedic, eat it up kind of role. But I'm tired of seeing him in everything.
Yeah.
Tom Hanks
too,
is who they
so-
would cast as Doc Boone, actually, and that would make a certain amount of sense.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
Oh,
it
as long
wouldn't
as
be
we're,
nearly as fun as that's actually what you want to cast Tom Cruise in, or something just off. I don't know.
yeah.
Yeah, Tom Cruise.
That's the role that you want to take aged big screen star and just let him ham up.
Okay, I'm making Tom Cruise Doc Boone. I like it.
All right.
And maybe Daniel Craig then can be the embezzler. Just Daniel Craig.
Yeah, I like that.
He's just having fun in one of his corny I'm not James Bond performances. And I just thought of something. Who's that lady that's the new hotness? She could play Dallas. The lady, she was in the James Bond. She was also in
yeah, she would be awesome.
Yeah.
What's her name?
I don't know what her name is, but
She was also opposite Daniel Craig in the first Knives Out.
right. She just played Marilyn Monroe in that Netflix thing.
Anna de Armas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And having the Dallas be a woman of color, I think would add a little something. So that means that Emily Blunt can be Mrs. Mallory.
Yeah.
That's perfect.
Okay, so we've got, I think the ladies are our best casting choices so far.
Yeah.
Maybe the only good ones. Who is the breakout John Wayne?
Well, that is the $1 million question.
There's just not like
We just don't have.
the younger leading man is like, who's it going to be? Tom Holland? Like, there's just not who's filling that space. Like, there's a generation above that of Chris's, but they're aged out of that. Like, you're not going to put Chris Pine or Chris Evans or Chris
Pine wouldn't be bad.
Pratt.
Maybe he's a little old for it now.
in
But
it.
But Chris Pine's a little thin.
Yeah, but we're talking about we need somebody younger than that.
How about-
And with more star power? Like, you can't. Like, can you pull Heath Ledger out?
You want to
who
pull
would
someone
you-
like Glenn Powell from Top Gun Maverick? That guy has maybe enough charisma. It would be interesting to see if he could stretch into that.
I like that guy.
That's not bad.
Yeah, let's do it. This will be a breakout role.
Did you guys see that he's starring in another? This is so retarded. I couldn't even finish the stupid trailer, but he's starring in another movie about an aviator who's the sidekick to the main character, kind of the bad attitude sidekick to the main character.
That's ridiculous.
It looks really crummy and dumb. This time with Jonathan Majors is playing a black airman in a time when that wasn't allowed. So Glenn Powell has to learn to sit down and shut up and be his wingman.
Well, there you go.
So he's a little typecast already, but we could pull him out of that with
Let's do it.
with Stagecoach.
I mean, Miles Teller is pretty good.
Yeah, I was wondering whether, but I like the idea of taking a risk and giving it to.
Glenn Powell.
So that means all we need to do is cast Buck the stage driver, Friar Tuck, which ought to be easy. Like, who's our cornpone idiot? Top comedic actors.
Yeah, you're gonna get the list that I had, and it's no fun.
Steve Martin, Will Ferrell, Owen Wilson,
Yeah, it's like that's it.
John Candy if he was still alive. All right, guys, all we need is Buck the stage driver, and this podcast is done.
What about that guy who was what's the name of that actor? He was Will Smith's protege in Hitch.
Kevin Hart? Or
Yeah.
no, not Kevin Hart.
No.
Kevin something.
Uh,
The King of Queens. That
Gary
guy.
Oldman, Brad Pitt, Johnny Depp.
Kevin James.
Yep. Let's do it. All right, so here's our list. We've got Stagecoach
Oh my goodness.
2022.
This movie tanks so hard.
Hey, we've got Ana de Armas as Dallas, the dance hall hostess. We've got
Yeah, and they did Selma Hayek in Wild Wild West, and you know what? It didn't matter.
we've got Eugene Levy as Mr. Peacock. We've got Cillian Murphy as Hatfield. We've got Glenn Powell as the Ringo Kid. We've got Tom Cruise as Josiah Boone. We've got Daniel Craig. I think this movie's making $1 billion. We've got Daniel Craig as the embezzler.
What is wrong with us?
Speaking
It's
of
horrible.
we could get Kenneth Branagh to play the embezzler. Speaking of Pammy old actors,
We could have Daniel Radcliffe play the Ringo Kid.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, so sad. Such a sad day.
Only if Emma Watson's going to be one of our girls. We've got Daniel Craig as the embezzler. We've got Noah Emmerich as Curly Wilcox. We've got Kevin James as Buck the stage driver, and Emily Blunt as Lucy Mallory.
Oh, I hate this movie.
It's such
so
a bad
much.
movie. I don't want to see any of these people on screen together.
No, it's a really bad mix. I mean, any couple of them, I'd want to see the movie. But all right, folks, tell us what
Who's our director? I think
Spielberg.
No, I think it's obviously Ryan Johnson.
Okay, now if Ryan Johnson makes that movie with that cast, I am watching it. I'm here for it. I don't know what it's gonna be, but
Oh no!
It's all puzzle
it'll be
box.
interesting. But that's
No, give Ryan Johnson that plot. He could do something fun with it.
he's gonna cast Joseph Gordon-Levitt as somebody though.
Yeah, that's fine.
I like Joseph
I
Gordon-Levitt.
did too. He's a good actor.
I'd put him in any of the male parts. I'll take some Ryan Johnson. I mean, he'll make it annoying, like the natives are the good guys now, kind of thing. It's one way or another. But maybe if you have Ana de Armas there to kind of represent the minority point of view, you don't need to redeem Geronimo. I don't know, but probably almost certainly you cast a big name as Geronimo and redeem him.
You should put Bryan Cranston in this movie.
Well, there's your Josiah Boone, for crying out loud.
Yeah.
You're who?
Yeah, your Doc.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah, there you go.
That's a pretty easy.
No, that's good.
Sorry, Tom Cruise.
Thank you. That is a good fix.
That is a good fix.
Who's our Ringo Kid again?
Glenn Powell.
That's right. I like that. I think you might be able to stretch Andrew Garfield into it. I don't know. He's such a talky guy, but
I don't buy him as very action capable, I don't think, but
no.
why isn't Don Draper in this movie? He should probably be
John
in there.
Hamm?
Speaking of, I mean, he could actually be Doc Boone as well, and he'd be great at it.
Yeah, John Hamm's good stuff.
John Hamm is being cast in 5,000 commercials these days. It's really weird.
Yeah, nobody's ever quite figured out what to do with him post Mad Men. It makes me sad because
He's like in a sizzle reel for Trey Turner, one of the hottest Major League Baseball guys to hit free agency. He's playing Santa Claus in a World Cup ad. He's like playing across Flo the Progressive Lady in a Progressive commercial. Like he's just like all over the place
Jeez, well,
in the weirdest ways.
hey,
Like Santa Claus in the World Cup commercial as John Hamm is so weird.
I hope he enjoys his summer home.
You could make Clint Eastwood the sheriff.
No,
He got one foot in the grave, man. You should put Nick Cage as the sheriff before you do Clint Eastwood.
Hey, I think we improved this. We just need to. Can we do something about Eugene Levy? If we take Eugene Levy out, I think we'll
that
have
was
a
a
movie.
bad. Whose idea was that? What idiot came up with that?
and
idea?
Kevin James, if we could get rid of them.
Oh, they're here to stay, my friend.
Mr. Peacock, Steve Buscemi.
Oh,
Okay, you guys both hate that idea. Buck the stage driver, Steve Buscemi. I bet they both love it this time.
Buck the
No.
stage driver could be John Turturro if you wanted.
Okay, fine. That's better. So, Mr. Peacock, the whiskey salesman, we just need a good one.
What's his name?
Justin Timberlake.
Justin.
No, too clean.
What's his name? Coen Brothers likes the guy. He's in Oh Brother. Tim Blake Nelson
Sure.
from Mr. Peacock.
Oh, sure. Why isn't Tim Blake Nelson in this?
Tim Blake Nelson's kind of awesome
Actually,
in his weird way.
Tim Blake Nelson is Buck the stage driver because he can do like
There
the
you
corny
go.
like I'm with
Yeah,
you,
that's
fellas.
good. I
Yeah.
like that.
That's
I like that.
okay.
So now is John Turturro Mr. Peacock?
No.
Okay, so who's Mr.
That doesn't
Peacock?
work.
We need a Mr. Peacock.
John Turturro can be someone if you want. It could be anyone. This is making me want to put Robert Pattinson in there, but he would never consent to be a good Ringo Kid. But he could pull it, the physicality and the,
Yeah, I mean, Robert Pattinson can do whatever he wants when he wants to do it, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, he says he wants to be in your movie.
Sure,
He's a good actor.
Who would take him? It's kind of awesome.
And he's got a good presence.
Who can? Andy Serkis can be Mr. Peacock.
All right, there we go. Little
Woody
annoyed.
Harrelson.
Woody Harrelson is Mr. Peacock?
Woody Harrelson's weird because he also can do anything except maybe play a hero.
I mean, Woody Harrelson could be anyone from Luke Plummer, the guy that's out for the Ringo Kid, to Josiah Boone, like Doc Boone. He'd be great for, like, Woody Harrelson's got.
He's fantastic.
For a guy that's so instantly
Who
sort
can-
of typecastable, he's very.
Who can Casey Affleck be?
Casey Affleck could be Mr. Peacock.
Yeah, whoever. Casey Affleck is also awesome.
Here, I'll give him Luke Plummer, the killer. All right, so we have.
That's good.
So let's see if we want to watch this movie. Anna de Armas it's who's directing it again?
Ryan Johnson.
Okay, so it's Ryan Johnson's Stagecoach, starring Anna de Armas as Dallas, the dance hall hostess, Woody Harrelson as Mr. Peacock, the whiskey salesman, Cillian Murphy as Hatfield, the card shark, Glenn Powell as the Ringo Kid, Bryan Cranston as Josiah Boone, the alcoholic doctor, Daniel Craig hamming it up as Henry Gatewood, the embezzler, Noah Emmerich as Curly Wilcox, the marshal, Tim Blake Nelson having fun as Buck, the stage driver, Emily Blunt as Mrs. Lucy Mallory, the expectant mother, and Casey Affleck as Luke Plummer, the killer.
I would watch that.
I
yeah.
would, yeah.
Yeah, we did
improve it. We improved it.
We improved.
dramatically from something that was horrible trash to something that's like another pass if we wanted to take
Yeah.
the time, and we could have something really great. But
Yeah.
We still have the problem of a lot of conflicting acting styles and some
Right.
people who feel very modern.
well, you keep Daniel Craig in it, and you're going to have a horrible forced accent that's not going to mesh and jive. The acting styles and stuff like that's just not.
To be clear, I love Daniel Craig in that race car movie where he does a silly accent, and I love him in Knives Out where he does a silly. I love silly, hammy Daniel. Hey, I'm not James Bond over here, Daniel Craig. But yes, he is wrong for our movie.
Yeah, wrong for this version of it at least.
Right.
You could also make Henry Cavill the gambler. Anyway,
Really?
I'm
He'd be fun.
Just thinking he would do awesome. I mean, I like Cillian Murphy a lot, but
Yes. Well, we got an acceptable 2022 Stagecoach at least.
if you were to go back about 10 years, Charlie Hunnam could be Ringo Kid.
Yeah, I love Charlie Hunnam. I'm sorry his career never quite took off the way it should have.
Yeah, it's a shame.
It is
But,
a real shame.
Well, anyway, folks,
Cool.
I'll tell you, or what?
Could have Ben Affleck play the gambler.
Ben Affleck can do any number of things.
I'd be happy to see Ben Affleck. I always like Ben Affleck in old washed up mode.
Yeah.
I guess if Tom Hardy wanted to put on his human warmth hat and play Ringo Kid 10 years ago, he could do it too.
Yeah, but there's all kinds of people that we could say 10, 20 years ago.
That's-
Christian Bale could have been in this. He was in that
Sure.
pretty okay Russell Crowe Western, 310 to Yuma.
Oh,
Not a great movie.
I don't like that movie.
I don't really like it either. In fact, I kind of hate it. But it's also pretty,
hated it.
It's pretty okay.
Sure.
It's
fine.
Well, anyway, we've cast an acceptable Stagecoach. If people want to tell us what their Stagecoach would be, well,
Join our Discord.
join our Discord. That's right. Go to patreon.com/sanity. At the movies, you can be part of the best conversation about movies currently happening on the internet. And
I think we've got. Do we have a whole casting? Oh, we should just create a channel for recast. Well, no,
We do. We have bad recasts. as a
No, that's
channel.
actually in a different show's Discord.
Oh, that's right.
But no, we have a whole thread on Stagecoach, so you can come discuss this movie, argue with our takes, give us your own casting choices in the Stagecoach channel. That'll be fun.
Yep, that sounds wonderful. Maybe you think that Eddie Murphy should play all 9 roles.
What could
Oh,
possibly
man.
go wrong?
in hilarious makeup.
Shaquille O'Neal.
Shaquille O'Neal. Yeah, let's just get black 90s stars to make their own
He just
Stagecoach.
did a commercial where he played he did an Eddie Murphy style commercial.
That sounds terrible. Why isn't Samuel L. Jackson in our movie? He should probably be in there as long as we're... Anyway, folks, go to patreon.com/sanity at the movies. Hey, also check out I always forget to plug this, check out our YouTube movie show. It's called Sanity on the Scene. I think you can find it at the Sanity on the Movies YouTube. Put either one of those in YouTube and you'll find it. And it's a lot of fun. And it sort of condenses some of our thoughts about movies into fun, bite-sized, like less than 10-minute videos that you can watch with your teenagers.
Some people in our Discord say that, or one person in our Discord said that they share it with their men's group.
Yeah, which is great.
Yeah. Awesome.
They're designed for that sort of thing. Like, here's a little burst of infotainment that can help make you more literate as you approach film, which is something that is drastically lacking among almost everyone these days. So go to check that out, share it, promote it, send it to your friends, send it to your enemies. We'd appreciate it. Support us at patreon.com/sanity at the movies. We'd like to hit that 250 mark so we can talk about Tim Burton and Richard Donner, which would be a lot of fun. So help us out. Until next time.
Oh dear.
I know all I need to know.
Thanks, Ben.
Sorry.
You're welcome.
I had nothing.